If I was smart, I'd turn my fuel building into a Krispy Kreme with Daly's parallels are gonna be.
I don't know, when they were talking about the marijuana distribution site, we were kidding around one night, that it was gonna go into Federal Way, and on one side would be the distribution, and the other side would be the nacho factory, and you'd kind of do drive.
Works for me.
So,
I don't even panic.
got a good laugh
The
anyway.
money they put in.
Oh, yeah, lots of people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, there was,
You ready to go live?
one of mine in Salem was
1900 open?
gonna get a guy, Peabody, Comcast building.
Motion to open a meeting?
Second.
No, Marie's not ready yet,
Oh, she just.
and I
thought
didn't know
were.
you got the chairman, Wally, so.
I'm not, that's what I just said, fly motion.
No, let everybody get set.
It was like $2 million for the playgrounds. That's gotta be some sick money.
Is that Maria? Rebecca, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Motion to open the meeting at 7 o'clock.
So motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have no invoices this week or this meeting, so continuing on to a public hearing for 38 Benjamin Street, Mobile Homes. I have to refuse. Lisa?
Yep, so I need a motion to open the continued hearing for 38 Benjamin Street.
So motion.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I did have one preface before we begin with this particular application. So the applicant was approved for a Form A as part of this development, and recently the applicant has constructed a temporary roadway in order to access such lot. In the process, the highway superintendent had gone out to the site and asked for some drainage improvements for the temporary roadway as it has impacts to the abutting neighbor. However, some of these drainage designs were not constructed per what the highway superintendent had requested, so the abutter is getting some drainage and erosion issues and would like to address the board in regards to those issues.
Okay.
Lisa, have her stand up and stay on there.
Can you just state your name and address, please?
Nancy Sweets at 9 Bell Street. And I just have some pictures
Sure.
of the construction. Not the last picture.
Sure.
The driveway, my driveway is.
Is this you? So that's the new extension of the roadway, I imagine, because it's brand new pavement.
Correct.
Is this, okay,
And that's my garage.
okay.
The highway superintendent has been informed and has seen these photos as well, and will be writing a letter to the applicant to ask for additional control measures to be put in place for the winter season, again, as temporary in nature.
Sure, so something along the lines of silt fence along the edge and hay bales or,
Exactly, and
Silt fence.
potentially putting some riprap around the edge of the pavement per where the berm is, because the berm actually leads kind of towards her
Yeah.
driveway.
Yeah.
If you look at the
Yeah.
berm, it ends above my driveway.
So it
Okay.
just dumps the water
So-
into that.
so it just funnels it down there.
And the
Yeah.
one picture you have of a grass shows asphalt from a berm that was in front of my house previously. For a snowstorm, they plowed it right out, so,
Pass these this way and then. If the applicant is able to install the temporary measures in accordance with what the highway director wants, will that satisfy you?
yes.
Okay,
I say, I haven't had access, the picture of the garage door in there is the garage door I have not had access to since he started construction.
okay. Why is that?
Which, because the road was torn up,
Sure.
and they didn't smooth it out so I could get
So you
down
could
in
get
there
in.
with ruts and, I mean, I would have ended up taking my exhaust system out of it, trying to back down into there. So I have been patient,
Mhm.
but with winter coming, and
Right.
the pictures of the boulders, that's that's the original Benjamin Street, and that's the, the stop guard for erosion, which you can see there's already erosion around that, so.
And then the applicant has received or was
So this was the new
approved at the
road
last
roads, is that
Conservation
it?
Commission for an order of
Yeah, that's what I'm
conditions.
trying to figure out, yeah.
Approved
Is that the
with
can you explain this to us since we
order
missed the
during this
briefing?
evening,
Sure.
and,
What
has
are we
stated
looking
that
at?
So the Star Road is the one you're referring to that was put in?
erosion control measures in
Correct,
accordance with
and-
that
Sure.
decision.
This is my driveway here,
So the water's just coming down here and it's running right into the dirt?
correct.
Okay. See the lines?
Yeah.
And these boulders you were saying?
That, down here is the continuation of Benjamin Street,
Okay,
and you can see erosion in front of them.
yep.
There is a silt fence back 25 feet, but. you know,
It's too far, right.
Do we have a plan on this? Do we have the plan for 38?
It's very full.
Yeah, but just to see what,
So the drainage concerns are actually associated with the lot that is not before the board. It's the lot that was created through a Form A process as part of the process, so it's actually the lot before the one in review tonight.
where,
It's 36 Benjamin.
So it's part of Benjamin Extension per se, while it just wasn't
Right.
constructed.
Right.
And I had been assured that. the
So
road
what-
would be
and this
kept
is
away
for
from my
which-
property,
Right.
which subdivision
but
is this?
that's the final road.
Right, not in the temporary measure. Right.
And the A&R is off of, oh, okay, so the access road that you're putting in is going where?
The gentleman
And what's
who
this?
had their-
Is this gonna be just a driveway, is this a road, what is this made out of? Paved like 2.5, 1.5, and 15-inch gravel and the standard base?
That's down in my driveway, looking up.
It's only 60 feet wide.
Okay,
And put 4-foot gravel.
yeah,
And just burn, big cut burn on the side.
all right. And where's the erosion coming down here?
I think right now it ends right here.
Yeah,
It's paved
That's
this
not
down
supposed to
here,
be
so it's
eroded either.
driveway.
right,
Right driveway to here, then I guess the erosion is going down. It's going down.
okay.
Right, that's it, that was gonna go.
Rebecca, on the drainage, once this is continued down, is that gonna be an issue with the highway?
Have the drainage will be in place, I believe there's also a retention pond.
Yeah, there's
that
permanent
goes as
drainage
well.
as part of the actual.
So it's down here at the end?
Yeah.
So if it, since the paving stops, that's where we're pooling and running off, is that gonna extend down to the, before year's end or what?
I mean, if you can look at
Probably in the
the
spring.
lay of the land.
Oh, so that's why.
So that will be the permanent measure, so it's just the temporary for the winter.
Okay,
They have approval for the lot.
so we're here tonight for
It's
the,
just- it's an
just to address the drainage runoff and make sure something,
Well, we're here to address the 38 Benjamin filing, but in accordance with their access to that lot is this particular temporary
I'm
roadway.
just leery of this washing
So
out.
while the butters having concerns already, I didn't know if the board wanted to try and see if there were any additional measures put in place before the roadway is actually fully constructed per the plans as approved.
well, that would have to be anyway on anything to stop the erosion, so that makes sense.
So that's,
Yeah, I think as long as they're doing what the road commissioner requests,
Yeah, fix the problem.
that's what happened.
Yeah.
sufficient.
There's no, is there wetlands out there that Comcom's gotta tag in on?
Down
I
the
see them
way.
over here, but,
Not up here. We're 100 feet away.
so you just got standard road construction erosion you gotta do.
Sure.
Okay. So,
So the
and this
bottom
is
line
up,
is, right or wrong, and this,
Well, we got,
and then, right, then we call it a day.
and so, and that's coming in for the A&R tonight?
the A&R already came, that's the
Came
definitive.
through, so we're just
sub-
here to discuss drainage.
No, we've got the
No, no.
definitive subdivision. To the front. So, ma'am, we'll reach out to the road commissioner and make sure that everything gets installed as he requested. And then we'll confirm that everything's installed, prior to winter. You're welcome.
Glad to do it for you.
And then so next would be the comment letter that TEC has provided in its final form, I believe.
Right.
That's in your package.
Peter, would you like to just speak really quickly? I know you guys have gone back and forth a bunch on this particular subdivision.
Yeah, essentially, all TEC's comments are addressed at this time with the one outstanding comment or concern being the long-term ownership and maintenance of the roadway. I think in past meetings, we talked about this as a private roadway. And then with this latest submission, I think it's being discussed as potentially being accepted as a public way. So that's something the board really needs to consider, where there are many waivers being requested for the construction of the roadway.
Right.
So is Benjamin Street a private way now? And then you're gonna pick it up from there and extend it?
85-foot extension, both ways for 1,500. That lot will be private, right? Benjamin down to that T turnaround is currently public. We're improving that to the same standard as currently built at 16-foot wide.
Yeah, but when you go for approval of the road, it's based on the regulation at the time of the submission, which is the regular road. So what's the TEC, what's the, it's either gonna have to remain a private way, which is typical, or if they accept it, or bring it up to standard.
Yeah, so the, I guess the pleasure of the applicant is that this is accepted as public way, then the board has to, you know, has to make that decision if they want to grant the waiver to reduce all the construction. You know, I don't know what the precedent in town has been on recent
So,
projects.
there's a couple of them, actually. There's Nora Lane that wanted to become a public way, and there's another one on Savory Lane. They also wanted to bring it up to a public way for obvious reasons, and the protocol's the same. At the time of the application, the standard that's in place, the road must be found with the fee before the town, so. And Stevenson's Way was another one. And that had to be brought up a little bit too, before that was accepted in. That was a little different, but they still had to do the same. So there's 3 standards already in the town that have a precedent with that. So what does the applicant want to do? Savory Lane, Nora Lane, Stevenson's Way, that come to mind right away. Which one? Pecker Lane is that still a paper street? It's what? Yeah, but is it accepted as a town road at the town meeting for that, the entire way? You gotta speak to the road commissioner on that, which, I wish Bobby A was here to see what precedence was, but that's the standard, so you have to decide what you're gonna do.
And then how would you actually feel, I think would benefit the town to accept it to be able to plow it? How you would plow it on the hill?
Well, we wouldn't on a private way, the owners would.
Well, no, but
That's,
Benjamin's going like this all the way, right now, right where Nancy's house is, well, she's not gonna be able to use hers, obviously, the way he does level.
yeah.
Pile of snow probably 20 feet high.
That's where they put it all, right at the beginning of the road, extending.
Who plows it now?
Right down Benjamin, well, not there. Take a right.
It's not?
It's only paved until Bell.
Okay, so when the towns,
So the
Nancy,
town pays
who
the
takes care of that road?
Who takes care of that road?
Yeah,
It was never plowed.
never plowed. So the advantages for the residents, if you accept the town road for town services, I get it, but you have to build it. So you gotta build it to the town standard at the time of the application. Because you can't. You can't. Because if you're accepting the town, if you're petitioning to a town road to be accepted by the town, it has to go by the standard at the time of that you're asking for that. And there is a town standard for that. You know, I'm sure there's a waiver or two somewhere, maybe, but you gotta look at it from, you're gonna put this in to be accepted by the town, and the townspeople vote on this, by the way. No, you own to the middle. Everybody owns to the middle in the road. You own the fee and the land to the, with right of permanent access. You can't block anybody from being there on that. So, I don't know, let's get some board input. You get, Bob, what do you think on that? I mean, that's been the standard.
He has to.
Oh, you can't say out.
Yep.
But you know Stevenson's Way, that's how we had to do that one. That was going down through, but you
That was
can't,
brought up
you
to-
can't block anybody off, and if you're doing the extension, and so you either gotta maintain a private way, and there's a few of them in the town, I just mentioned 3. So you have to figure out what you're gonna do with that, with the deeds. Those are big problems, because one party doesn't wanna plow the other side, okay? I don't know, that, I don't have the plan. So, no, that's not right either, because you have to send a fire engine down, or a police car, or an ambulance, so there's gonna be emergency vehicle access. So, even though you may own the fee and the land, and you may have to maintain the road and the drainage and everything else that goes with it, and I'm sure there'll be some kind of bond that usually transfers over and goes with the deeds of all the land, if they have to maintain it, that becomes a serious problem. But if you want the town to accept the road, then you have to go up to the standard, and I'm not sure what kind of waivers you're asking for, but, you know, just everybody's got a list on here. Is this it on item 14? TEC, where's the waiver? All right. But, the approval process, it starts with the board, but then it goes to the highway commissioner, and then it goes to the selectmen, and then it gets on the warrant, and then the townspeople accept it on the fee and the land. Yeah, well, if it's not constructed to the town standards, it's dead on arrival, I can tell you that, so. Width might be an issue. Is there a 50-foot right-of-way down there?
The existing right-of-way for the existing public portion is only 40 feet.
40 feet, so that's normal. And then
Well,
what about?
and this is where we'll get into the argument, is that the existing public way is not built to town standard.
It was at the time. So, and when you accept that, you have to bring it up to the standard, even though there was a 40-foot right-of-way, the structure itself has to be brought
Well,
up.
I don't think they can achieve a 50-foot right-of-way.
Well, then that's all, even on the new part?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so then that's a vote of the town for the waiver to the highway commissioner and the town to accept the
Right.
40-foot right-of-way, but it still has to be built to the standard. And I think we have done that on one road. I don't know if it was Stevenson's Way, they couldn't get a 50, but they did build it up, but it was accepted as it was originally designed. Yeah, because the taking to get the 50-foot right-of-way worked its way into, did more damage. It went into people's property and sidewalks and all kinds of stuff. There was a reason why it stayed 40. Let's see, so what do we got in there? Two, requested waiver. Can I see that plan up here again, Bill? Who spelled Groveland wrong? Real fast one. Coming down here? Okay, yeah. Yeah. All right. Right. And the right-of-way can't be 50 up here or here? No, it's... Is this on the existing paper street? Is that what you guys are doing? Did that go all the way down initially?
Yeah, went down like this, it kind of,
So you're adding a hammerhead and a turn over to here, and you can't get 50 feet wide wherever applicable?
not really, no.
Anywhere?
Well,
What's this? Town of Groveland?
we widened it here, it's still gonna be 35 feet.
Well, no, it can't, you're right. The new section might meet the standard of the 50-foot right-of-way, but obviously there are sections that cannot. Okay, and where the town owns this over here, is that right? I'm seeing that, so that's, they get that anyway, so shift over. So where could you get a standard 50-foot right-of-way? Starting where, ending where?
Started here,
Yeah,
and you can get it wide on this side. you can't
yeah,
on that side.
right, no, that's fine, I understand the center line issue. Okay, and what about up here? You paving this to here, and what's this now?
That's the same, that's, Park Street is the same as Benjamin.
Right, okay, so the 40-foot, but you're paving to here, and what's here now?
Right there is, this side, this is a, was a dirt path there before, but it's there. Beyond that, it's nothing.
It's not, okay, I get it, okay,
Beyond it.
okay, so that wouldn't matter then, and so Park Street would end, really. Okay. Actually, the town could pull that right over there, right? What's this parcel from the town, just Johnson's Pond, is this part of the,
Yeah, that's conservation.
okay, so that,
Let it
all right,
bottleneck in and out.
yeah. Okay. So your waiver request is, I'm looking at besides spelling the town of Groveland correctly, have you guys looked at this?
Yep, we've
Yeah, we
talked about
saw
this
it.
one for months.
So, and your initial plan was to get this approved by the town? Town accepted?
Just to stay private.
Yeah, it goes with the extension. I don't think that's gonna pass the muster, with that many waivers for a town-accepted way, private way.
Right, but I don't know that it's anything that we actually have to make a decision on. They try, and if they get it, if it passes through all the steps, it passes through all the steps, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But
We cannot approve well, we can put it in the memorandum. It's an A&R filing.
no, it's a definitive.
It's a definitive,
subdivision.
so in the definitive on the memorandum that if the town, if the applicant wishes to bring it up to town, if he accepted by the town, it must be brought up to town standard at the time of the application.
Sure, but isn't that also up to the people reviewing it to bring it, to decide that it has to be brought up to town standard? Like if the highway commissioner looks at it and says it's fine, and then I'm not saying that it won't ask to be brought up to town standard. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that people might just let it stay the way it is because it matches the existing
Well,
piece
then it's
that's
a
already
private way.
publicly accepted.
Right, so then it's in my,
Not even grandfather, it is at the discretion of the people. Like, if the highway commissioner, at the time, I'm not saying you're gonna do it immediately, you might wait 10 years, I don't know. The highway commissioner at the time says, this is fine, it can move on. And then the selectmen look at it and say, yeah, we don't care, it can move on. And then it gets voted on at town meeting, and they say, yeah, we don't care, we can accept it, just as is, not that it has to change.
yeah, but
Then
you're
why
looking.
couldn't that happen?
Because you're filing a definitive subdivision plan for an application for a way to be accepted by the
It's a
town.
current private way that could at some point in the future become a
But
public way.
you're asking for the whole thing to be, that you're doing, to be accepted as a public way?
Right now?
Yes.
No, what I'm saying is, it was brought to our attention that Benjamin Street is a public road. Benjamin Street is a public road, and that we were just going to bring, the Benjamin Street portion that wasn't finished up to the standards that Benjamin Street is now going to. And then the part that we were adding, which was the extension, was going to be private.
Public down right here, this.
Right.
Right here
I
is
mean,
public way
he was
right
the one
now.
that brought it to our attention, really, that it was public.
And then
As a public
this
road,
and
how
this
can
is
you have it
private.
be private?
So the T turnaround is private, but Benjamin Street down to here is
So then just leave it private and don't bother accepting it. And then if the towns, whoever's down there at the time, want to bring that up, but the problem's gonna be, you're gonna have to bring all of Benjamin up to where this started. That's the problem that I see.
Benjamin's already an
But
acceptance.
the part of Benjamin that already exists is already public way, it does not
So
need
it's
to
already
be
a
brought
public,
up.
so that's accepted, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just
But
the
let's
part that
say
they're
10
accepting.
years from now, the standard changes. 'Cause
Sure.
right now, we get 15 and, 2.5 and
Sure.
1.5.
But
Okay.
the part that's already public does not need to change, because it's already
No,
public.
this doesn't have to change, and it should match, but I don't know what Benjamin Street is. But this extension, the way he just showed me on the paving, it goes quite a ways down and in. So, just to see the way that you're going, it should maintain a private way. It's only 150 feet in a turnaround?
The point is, it's a public road, and I don't understand why you wouldn't want it to just remain that way and let them continue plowing that. That one was all about the plowing, right? Somebody's not gonna plow it.
But you just said Benjamin Way's not plowed now? Did I hear that?
No, Benjamin is plowed.
Oh, it is.
It will benefit everybody if they do come across. It will benefit Nancy.
Then,
Benefit the
three
three houses because there's no road there now, and then only
So then-
there's one lot that serviced one lot, and now that lot has been created into 3 lots. And so the extension will only service those 2, but there are connections, such as the Conservation Commission land that are further down. And yes, now currently it's not paved, so Nancy doesn't have access other than a dirt path. However, if it was paved, maybe it would enhance Nancy's experience of utilizing a driveway, but we're not talking more than 3, potentially 4, although Nancy has other access houses.
what's under that road now, Bill? Benjamin Street now, what's it got? When's the last time it was?
Actually, what was used before was gravel. You can see you started at 12 feet now. Long uphill.
So it's not paved now?
Not finished paving.
Not past.
No, I put a binder on it, just said, get to the house.
No, but prior to you doing anything, it's been gravel.
Right.
Now, we did have another,
Clear. The warrant article stated that Benjamin Street was accepted. It did not say Benjamin was accepted from Pond to Bell. It just said
Right.
Benjamin Street is an accepted roadway. So because of the fact that the warrant article left open so much,
Vague.
what year was that?
that was done in the 90s, I believe.
When we went through and accepted all the way, okay.
So
Um,
it's accepted, but it wasn't, it was only ever intentioned to be accepted to Bell, but the language is not clear. They are correct. The language strictly says Benjamin Street. So if it's laid out on that plan of land from 1917 and it extends to that bend and it says Benjamin Street, even though
Accept
it's not
the
on the
road.
ground,
It's-
it's
So then that comes under,
Accepted de facto.
Right.
then that comes under the auspices of the road commissioner to dictate the standard that he wants,
Which I
We don't
believe
have a
he,
roadway commissioner, we have a highway commissioner.
our highway superintendent.
So they just
We
have
had a
their-
road commissioner.
But they have different powers. The road commissioner had more powers than a highway superintendent, because they're appointed by the board of selectmen. So it's just different.
So who's steering the roadways now for extensions, funds, warrants, highway supervisor?
The highway superintendent is taking care of the roadway maintenance and
Okay,
planning and.
so then he would dictate the standard. So at the time of acceptance, the applicant would have to pitch to him and see what he wants at the time, although I would recommend they do it before that.
Well, currently I know that they do not want to take care of the road in the condition that it is, because it's temporary in nature, obviously.
Right.
So, in the decision that I drafted, I stated that the road would be deemed private unless petitioned for roadway acceptance. And then stated there'd be no plowing and trash until they actually petitioned for acceptance. And I had run that by the highway superintendent, and he was fine with that.
There you go.
But if there's a specific, or if you'd like me to go back to him for specifics, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that, what I call constitutional memory is that the highway superintendent, we have this conversation, and if nothing gets into the memorandum or into the deed office, on recording that, and he leaves 3 years from now, and 10 years from now, they petition,
Well, it still will be on the deed.
No, but it
as
still
in
says
the
in there.
decision, it says that that needs to be listed as a private roadway unless petitioned for roadway acceptance, which to be carried onto their deed prior to even getting a building permit.
So then we
they
need to add the language that to be, if accepted by the highway commissioner, superintendent, to be brought up to the standard of his recommendations.
We have to do a recommendation for any
Right.
street acceptance that we have. It goes through the Board of Selectmen for laying out.
Yeah, but we gotta put the teeth in so that if he says, hey, I want that whole street paved because it's been 10 years and it looks like, somebody dropped 500-pound bombs on it, okay, over the years, and we don't give him the authority through the memorandum of the decision for the definitive, then someone could say, hey, well, that's great, you suggested that, but where's the teeth?
So what would the board like for language then?
I think in item 18 where you add it, where you put in that it was to remain a private roadway unless petitioned for acceptance, you could just put in a sentence that say acceptance is contingent upon the approval of the highway superintendent, assuming that's still what they're called whenever this comes to pass.
And to the standard to which he dictates? Just-
Yeah, or whatever.
Standard of construction.
And again, I'm not saying that when you do that, he's not gonna look at it and say, okay, you built it exactly the way Benjamin Street already exists. That's fine. He may not, I don't know.
Yeah, we've had a couple where your theory is right, and then what they did is, the developer worked with the town, because it was on a list to be repaved anyway, and somehow that worked pretty good. I don't know what the town did, that's why I wish Bobby was here, he could tell you about it, but there was a few of those, to where the developer did work hand in hand with the town, and you did your portion, and the town did their portion at the same time, so you didn't have a break, and it worked out. So that could be something that happens in the future. I don't know, maybe Bill remembers it, I don't know. I can't remember what street that was that we did that on. I think there was more than one. Okay, so that answers all that stuff. Was that the only concern, TEC? No? Okay, so that beats that one up, that's good.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Sure.
The amount of the bond, for this one lot subdivision, seems to be
$190?
So a large portion of that money winds up holding in contingency. And then, it's mostly because you have a decent amount of stormwater infrastructure that you have to install, even though it's only one lot. Just doing the extension, the way you're doing it means that you've got, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got almost $45,000 worth of stormwater, infrastructure, which is why we're carrying the bond so high. So it was recommended that it'd be $190,000, and, I don't see any issues with this. I'm not sure if any of the other board members.
Nope. How you gonna, what's the surety going in? How you gonna do it?
Any issues with bond being like that?
Motion accept with the changes, we'll close the hearing.
Anything else? No, good. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to speak about 38 Benjamin?
I'm just curious, if they do approve the road,
Mhm.
where the T is now, is still gonna remain private?
The T will always remain private because it's the extension beyond.
Push the snow if they push it down.
That is up to the highway commissioner. I'm not sure where they won't be allowed to push it there because that's the only emergency access turnaround. My guess is that they would have to push it and then kind of turn it around the bend a little, kind of push it off the side the best they can. But they couldn't just like leave it sitting in the turnaround because that needs to be available for emergency access. Yep. Plow drivers get very creative when they have to, so I'm sure they'll figure something out.
Plus they send out a loader.
Yeah, they'll probably have to haul at least some, for any substantial amount of snow, they'll have to haul it out, and
Or
not just leave it sitting there.
Giant snow blower,
Okay.
bring down one of the airport boys and clear it out.
I mean, ultimately, safety is first, so they're gonna make sure that it happens. I don't wanna worry about that too much.
Great, so can I get a motion to close the hearing?
So motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then, can I get a motion to approve the plan for 38 Benjamin, including the temporary measures for the current access way in regards to drainage, as well as that we will modify the draft memorandum to include the bit about acceptance being contingent on the highway superintendent's approval
And standards.
and standards.
So motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Had we previously voted on the waivers?
Sorry?
Had we previously voted on the waivers?
We did vote on that.
We did, okay, I just couldn't recall.
We did on, I believe we did with, 7:30,
We did them all together?
so I thought we did them all together.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I don't need to do it.
We should do it again then.
Okay.
I thought it was either 7:33 or 38, or we did them together, but
I
maybe
thought we did them
7:33.
together, but maybe not. Okay. I will quickly go through the list of waivers, and we can vote on it one more time, just to be sure. I will just read them all aloud, and then unless anyone has any issue with one in particular, we could just approve them all together. Waiver number 1, a waiver from 4.3.9.3 to the standard roadway cross-section. Adequate access is provided with 16 feet pavement width and 4-foot gravel shoulder on either side for a total of 20 feet accessible width. Number 2, a waiver from section 4.3.10.1, which requires the maximum allowable slope for minor streets to be 10%. The applicant proposes a 12% slope in order to accommodate emergency vehicles as an alternative to a cul-de-sac.
You want a motion to suspend the reading?
I would love that.
Okay, motion to suspend the reading
None of them
of
have
the
changed.
waivers all listed on the plan and the,
Perfect. I need a second for that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the waivers as written?
Aye.
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 Unanimous, 1 abstains. And we are all set. Did you guys have the Mylar to endorse tonight?
Not tonight, well, then
Do
we need
that.
to provide other documentation and
Okay.
these are the forms and things of that nature.
Okay.
I already read this.
Okay, perfect. All right. Sure. December 3rd. All right. Well, you guys are all set. Thank you very much for coming in. I will turn it back over to Chairman Danforth, as I cannot talk about this one. Just get to sit back and relax.
Okay, 301 Main Street, applicant requests a continuance to the next meeting, December 3rd. Do we have a motion?
So motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, it's 2:45, make a, open hearing for 245 Center Street. Do I have a motion?
So motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So in your package, you'll find the updated letter from TEC, as well as, a letter from the interim fire chief, and also the water and sewer superintendent. And maybe it might be best for the board to first kind of give everybody an understanding of how the site visit went on Saturday, the 16th, I believe it was.
I thought, you were here, Lisa, you didn't know you did it, yeah, so, but Bobby was there, Bobby's not in tonight, but, I thought it went well. He had the whole road, center of the road staked out. It's gonna be a nice lot. It's, everything's done. I don't know what TEC, thought of it, after walking it.
Yeah, I thought the site went well. There were a lot of issues that were discussed. I think need to get discussed again in public meeting. In my letter, I wrote just a list of items that I remembered from the meeting, from the walk. The limit of work lines around the limits of the roadway and areas surrounding it. Trees to remain and trees to be removed were a subject of discussion. The stormwater management, access for the fire department, where would that hammerhead turn be located, if they were gonna construct one? And, what type of material would be, would the road be constructed out of, and would that meet the fire department requirements? Site distance at the driveway, which actually I looked back and that was something that we discussed at the last public hearing as well. I think they're fine in one direction, but coming out of the driveway, there's I think a spot that needs to get looked at closer to that Hancock. And then buffer plans along the edges of the project. So, yes, is the board, any of these items, the board would want to discuss in further detail?
Yeah, I would. Do we have a copy of a plan? And did any of the residents, we didn't see anybody out there on the, yeah, it was I'm sorry about that, that was a public walk, so anybody was, once we announced it and put it out there, it's, anybody can show. Sorry about that, if we missed that. Did anybody see us out there? You know, we were out there for quite a while, I think.
It is private property, so you would have needed to get authorization from the homeowner.
That is the first thing that gets submitted into the package is access for the board and its assignees to go out onto a site, but once we post it as a public viewing site, but only for that day, for that time slot. Yeah,
We disagree, but understood.
yeah, shall. But yeah, that is one of our forms that we submit, that the landowners do give access. Still by appointment, though. So, from what we saw on the site, and I just want to refer to one of the, can we have the driveway plan for those that, I want you, we walked it, asked a lot of questions, the site distance, Pete clearly identified coming through in, and then it became, because of this 12% grade, have you talked to Hancock since, okay. And once you get out there, and Rebecca, you walked it too, I think everybody agreed that this is not as steep when you walk it than it is on the plan. It's just there. But there's a lot of destruction that is happening in here on the plan that once you get in there and take a look at this, and that most likely doesn't need to happen, a lot of mature 100-plus year trees that provide a buffer zone for the residents on that side. And also for these infiltration basins that would be in there and be permanent and almost look like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the initial plan was a full 50-foot wide on this, is that right?
What's a
Of-
full 50-foot wide?
To clear and initially to get everything in.
It's gonna require clearing where the grade variation is. So this drainage swale and the drive, but the drive is, continuing.
Yeah, the drive, I
That-
just
but
mean
that-
up down
but
in
that
here.
area, yeah, it's going to require grading. These are all cut fill lines.
Yeah, that's what, okay, so that became blatantly obvious that, that there was it's accurate on the plan, but when you actually look at it, that this kind of destruction most likely wouldn't have to take place if there was another type of thing, so, and Rebecca reminded me today that you may have submitted a different plan for this access, but without the detention basins?
That was original. This came about, originally, it was going to be just a drainage swale under the end of the driveway. Per recommendation of the Conservation Commission, thought that would be sufficient. But the board's and the engineer's requirement for stormwater management brought, and the neighbor's concern about runoff brought this retention pond about. It started with a smaller one, and then that was inadequate. So to fulfill the requirements and to cover the concerns of the abutters, this was created. So it was a timeline that this plan changed.
Right, okay. And then we got out to the sidewalk, and what I was, typically, we do a lot of this work in a preliminary filing. We have the conceptual filing, then we jump to a preliminary filing, and you have the right to go to definitive, you did. So when you jump to the definitive, you take out a step of the preliminary planning, which is less detail, and, yeah, it's a few extra hearings on that. But I think the preliminary process, you know, gets the neighbors involved and everything else at a very, very early stage. So when you jump to the definitive, it's a very quick process going through, but
Well,
it's,
you know, with the information you were getting from the powers to be, it was felt that that was an
yeah,
acceptable method.
it's your right to file whichever you want. It's just that typically in my 27-plus years here that I've seen, when you file a preliminary plan, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the preliminary, and by the time you get to the definitive, it's a very smooth sailing process with minor changes instead of some other ones. So from the applicant standpoint, and Pete, we were talking about and everything you just mentioned, what would, if anything, have to change with an applicant's submission for you to look at? And obviously, his engineer's got to do it with him to submit it to the board. And then the board would have to see if they like it and on it. And what that entailed is leaving mature trees, getting conservation involved, not as big of the, this water detention areas, but you saw the swale on the side of the road that's already there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get there. Is activate that in the area, but if you notice that over the years, because King Street's a variable right-of-way, it's been there for hundreds of years, it was a stagecoach road, I think. And I'm not sure when the road construction on King Street, you might know though. When did they pave King Street, do you know? In the 70s, or was it?
No, 80 sometime.
Is the 80s, okay.
Yep.
Onto that. So when that happened, some of that got filled in the area. So this plan as it shows with these detention basins is a giant, maybe a giant overkill to put in there, and you'd have to clear cut that whole 50-foot wide right-of-way to put all this stuff in, which would just leave it as a detriment to the residents on both sides, because there's two, you're up top, and it would be all on this side. So a suggestion, and after hearing from everybody that was there, the applicant and Pete and I chatting on this and taking a look at this site, if you don't have to clear cut this whole area and a mature tree stays in, the drainage theoretically is less. And over on King Street, somewhere in this area here, the pitch of the road, because the swale kind of disappears, pushes the water on the road naturally. That would correct that as a betterment to the town. So the water would go back in off the side of the road. And then that resident that's over here with the driveway, that there's no pipe under it, would have to get a pipe anyway, because that's all part of it too. Not very big, 12-inch, something like that. And then it would continue down into there, and it would most likely, theoretically, eliminate this need, and it wouldn't look like this giant 50-foot cut with, and then COMCOM would have to weigh in on theirs and allow these big, mature, 125-year trees to stay, and they could navigate around them enough to get a fire truck through. But the applicant has to decide what they want to do with that. If they want to.
I'd like to leave it just the way it is, that's with the road we've gone down, we've done all the engineering on it. If we go down the side of the road, we're dealing with road commissioner, road construction, we're digging up the frontage in Mr. Chandler's, Joe Chandler's yard. It's gonna open up a new can of worms.
Okay.
The drainage
So,
across his
you're right.
driveway, it's opening up a new can of worms.
So then, all right, that answers that question. So then we still got line of sight issue no matter what. And what else, if you eliminate all of that? Buffer zones, we talked about that. What else?
I think buffer planning, we talked about you adding trees along the edges of the project. Which I think,
Open areas.
Oh, in the-
Primarily, it was where my rock dump is, that's the most open spot right there.
Yeah.
Everything else is going to have, approximate 25 on the low side. And once we get to the main body of the land, it bears away from the property line, so that buffer zone just only increases. And everything else already has 25 plus feet of buffer zone. And so some of it being, closer, increasing to approximate 100 feet by the time we get to that clearing, that we're approximately 100 feet off the stone wall. actually center a road at, the clearing's 116 feet off the center of the road. I mean, the wall, the property line, center of the road. So
So-
at that point, there's plenty of buffer zone, you can't get much more than that. I mean, can't even see through there. There's one where, the clearing is in the rock pile, that is visible, the stone wall is visible, so that would be the one area that would, need some, planting.
So, and that's, we could use the catch-all that's in the reg book for that buffer trees as a sign where there are known areas, you already plans, the landscape plan for that?
As, the Zimmermans were, out of Sunday, we had discussion, and I said, you know, my objective is to create a lot that is as private as possible for me.
Yeah.
So they will reap the benefit of me planting to create privacy for myself.
Okay, so on the line of sight, you still gotta get your engineer involved, we still got the town involved, we still got the town involved for the swale that is even on this plan, and under the driveway, you still gotta put a pipe there, cause it's gonna wash down. So we still have all of that to do.
The line of sight, we have to get our engineer involved in that, even if he doesn't do it.
Oh, no, she said.
The line of sight, you gotta get a distance on it and meet the
I'm
traffic
not
and,
good at pulling out of the driveway.
so,
It's, there is some slight improvement possible there, as you pointed out, but it is only slight, but after that, it's crest of hill.
right,
There's a crest hill that turns.
I think he has,
Yeah,
I really do. After being down, I think he's already all set with the line of sight. I don't see
It's-
any reason why you have to get involved with the engineer for the line of sight. Huh?
The site distance based on the speed that cars travel down the roadway.
Right.
But they'll also take into account the curve of the road.
yeah, so that's gotta be determined on that. So we still got, you still have to hit all those check box.
One thing you said was,
Yeah.
the swale on the side of the road, I'm not sure that falls under the purview of what they're required to.
Just this dump output, yeah.
They are gonna construct a pipe under their driveway.
Right, yeah,
Under their driveway.
yeah.
Their driveway,
But
nobody else.
works beyond that point within the right of way, I don't
No,
necessarily.
right.
Well, that would need approval within the right of way. Actually, I was referring to the driveway next door that doesn't have a pipe.
Yeah, exactly.
That one. So that one, you can't dump any more water than on someone else's property, so you're more than likely gonna have to slide something under there.
Well,
It's gravel.
That's what the basin takes care of.
Yeah, that's what the, yeah.
So the basin is designed so that they are not going to add any more runoff toward that driveway next door, essentially, so they could leave that.
Does that flood now? Sir, neighbor? Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right, so that answers that.
You see,
Okay.
see the plans, please?
The next one down, right?
Sure. Polly, can we just?
Yep,
Bob just
sorry.
needs to see it.
It wouldn't be, do you still have that other sheet that you originally submitted?
Right. Right.
The first one where, before we asked them to do that?
I don't have it with my sheet.
No, okay, so,
That's fine.
so if you come back from Concom,
I saw
when
it
you go there,
Yes.
and speak with them, and they suggest things,
Yes.
it's very easy to substitute a sheet on a filing without doing anything else on engineering wise, right? Was that sheet that good? Did it show what we were talking about by walking through?
You don't have water on top of your driveway when it's flooded? The neighbor to your right says that you do. When our puddles up?
No.
It gets between his pipe house, he gets a 12-foot pipe on his driveway.
Yeah, but he gets water from Center Street. He gets water from the ground from Center Street. I don't have any water on the driveway.
Okay.
None at all. Never.
But would that sheet,
There's been a lot of detail added to the plans since that first sheet was submitted,
yeah,
so that was like a really early version of the plan, I guess. So that might, like, for example, that first sheet did not show any of the work line.
okay, so what about just a cross-section of the first 50 feet up? Little snapshot. As an addendum.
Oh, as an addendum?
I think that we, the cross-section of the driveway.
Yeah, the cross-section's there, but what I'm saying is that if your hearings with Concom and you're gonna talk to them about things, and before you come back to here, if some of these things that we talked about, you wanted to do, not to re-engineer the whole thing, you would have to submit it. If you don't wanna submit it, then that's the plan you're submitting. But if Concom suggests, when you go to them and you wanna save some trees and stuff, and they say, yeah, do the dance, then that's gonna come back in, but you could do it in a small addendum sheet that wouldn't be you wouldn't have to put the whole thing on there, to the changes proposed by yourselves and/or conservation based upon their stuff. So,
Well, as a discussion Saturday, as far as, I didn't wanna reinvent the wheel, and so we met with the entire board, because it was just the four of us out there. having
Right.
that discussion, and, we have to, get conservation's input on.
right, conservation is the biggest. I mean, they would dictate it, but see what their outcome is. But if you decide and they help you out with whatever it is you'd like to do in the end, then I think from a board's perspective, what would the board want? Would an addendum sheet work on just that section up? Rebecca's having a cow over there. She's losing it.
So the addendum sheet would cover if Concom wants them to remove implication bases.
Yeah, and whatever else they're doing, because, the whole theory was to maintain those huge trees, because there's not one, not two, not three, there's a bunch of them all the way up, and it would give,
You've already met with Concom, haven't you, once?
Yeah, we've had a-
had the initial notice of intent meeting, but they're coming to our house on Saturday
Oh, okay.
For
But
their
it-
walkthrough.
but
for the walk.
Have they seen this set of plans yet?
Yeah.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay.
but whatever you submit to the board, well, that's what we get, so if you submit something, you submit it, you don't. So, it's on that.
I didn't see the letter from the fire department, so.
I mean, yeah,
I gotta read
they don't, basically, they don't mind the long driveway,
Yeah.
so.
It actually says they do have concerns with long, narrow driveways and steep grades.
Things that they don't have the jurisdiction, however, they do have concerns.
Concerns.
Yeah. Have you talked to them with this plan?
I called again today, but
We're having a hard time getting in touch.
they've had the plans for a few months.
Why don't you take this? I'm giving them the public record input from the fire chief, his interim fire chief, onto that. They do have the authority, under the subdivision control law, to pitch in what they want, where we accept it under 345, I think it is.
He says they do not.
I wonder if he's the interim chief, I wonder if he knows that's in there. He may have missed your last blast with updating on the boards.
I can definitely give him another shout.
That page that you always hand out for each department's requirements, I think that
I
would
think the bottom
suffice.
line is if the fire commissioner turns around and says, you know what, we have to do X, Y, Z, I'm sure the good people right here would be happy to do that.
Yeah,
Correct?
in the subdivision regs,
Fire trucks, that.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying to you is,
I'm sure you would like to
It's
build
a-
a fire station up there if you could, right, and sneak it in there with an extra truck?
that's what I'm saying. I'm sure if it needed to be done, it would be done. I'm sure that would be the issue.
In the reg book, each department and each board has specific input to put in on any definitive plan. And the fire chiefs, that's what gives him the authority for the access and the widening of the road and all that. So he can just look at that and get it in there. And you're right, I'm sure nobody's gonna prevent a fire truck from getting on the top, especially these things on that. Alright.
So, I guess, the sense I'm getting is some members of the board, I think, are only ready to approve this.
I'd like to fly a motion that we just continue till we get conservation input, and that's it. When's your meeting with them?
Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the
When's our next meeting?
December 3rd.
Okay.
For us.
For them, I think it's
The 13th.
December 3rd is
Oh,
our
it's
next
after
meeting.
us. Yeah.
Okay. Flavor of the board, I guess.
they only meet once a month.
Yeah, if they make changes, we're gonna need to look at them anyway, just kinda.
Well, what if we do a contingent on the changes?
be contingent on the changes and what they're gonna submit. I didn't really see a
Their
problem.
engineer spoke probably for about a half hour about the changes that we wanted and they wanted to contain the water and the abutters' concerns.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what they were saying, yeah. I don't see any issue if it's to the December 3rd. It's just 2 weeks. They'll have Concom input, and that'll be a done deal.
It's 2 weeks, but they won't have
We won't have Conservation
Mhm.
Commission input
until the 13th.
in December. Our next meeting is the
Not
3rd.
official.
So we can get site distance information.
We're gonna need that anyway, yeah.
And then
Could do
take a
that.
vote at that point in time if the board felt that that was the direction they wanted to go.
That'll work. Maybe Concom can give us a preliminary.
I can ask the chairman and the conservation agent to see if they'd be amenable to that.
Does that work with the board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also in your packet is a letter that, most recent letter from the abutters concerning this project.
Is anyone gonna speak on this letter?
I'm not gonna read it verbatim, it's kinda long, but, the first thing I wanna do is I wanna thank the board for coming out for the site visit, and the town planner, and the acting fire chief, and the highway superintendent, and that's it at this point. The first thing I wanna do, I wanna talk about, some 3 requests that we have that are gonna protect the town, they're gonna protect the abutters, and they're gonna protect any future residents of the property. First one is concerning drainage. I know the highway superintendent looked at it and basically wrote something up saying that the applicants or any future residents were gonna be responsible for drainage. My question to the board is, who's gonna be the enforcing body if there are any kind of problems? And I would like to see that, the enforcement language added to that document, and I'd like to see that document recorded in the registry of deeds. If this document sits over in VZ Park somewhere, and it's buried and people don't know about it, any kind of future residents there aren't even gonna see what's going on with it. Somebody does a title search, they'll see it, everybody comes in with their eyes open. I'd like to see some enforcement language in that. And I'd like comments from the board on what they think about that.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, your concern is that the construction, the engineers, once they do this drainage, would do it improperly, so in the future, you're thinking there's gonna be an overflow.
Yes, if there's an overflow, who's gonna enforce any kind of actions that need to be done? And I want that recorded in the registry.
We typically do that for other subdivision plans where we'll tie in operations and maintenance plan to the deed of the property, so there is ways and mechanisms that the board can proceed with that as well, if they would be amenable to a condition and a decision if they wanted to seek approval.
I don't think this is unreasonable. I think this is a totally reasonable request.
No, I don't think it is either. I'm just listening for myself for the rest of it. What did the highway superintendent say? Because that's, is that letter here? Did I miss it?
That was in the last board meeting.
Okay. And,
Have it here if you wanna look at it.
yeah, just to see what he's, because he's new too. So, how long's he been on post?
I think I
Over
have it.
6 months now, almost
6 months?
almost a year.
Has he gotten that item
I'll
as
take it
well?
back, I don't have it.
What item? I'm
In the
sorry.
subdivision control law, what he's responsible for?
I've shared with them the subdivision rules and regulations and the process and procedure.
Yeah, I mean, that particular item for each board, I think, as members
Like
change.
the checklist that you have?
Yes,
in front of you?
yes.
They've all received a checklist, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have it, I thought I had it.
okay. So,
Basically, what they're saying is that they can't, what I remember is that they can't guarantee that there aren't gonna be drainage problems, but the swale is not public, and then it would be the owners of the property would be responsible for any kind of problems with drainage.
it goes up until the right-of-way, though. Then the right-of-way is the town, and so that's,
I'm just pulling up the
It-
letter right now.
and no
I
one
just
can
don't wanna
wash
do-
out somebody else on the private property side, but if it's into the right-of-way that's washing somebody out, then that's a town issue.
if it washes out private property too. I mean, the town's the one that's, the planning board is the one that's approving this. You've seen what the.
Yeah, that comes under zoning, you can't wash somebody out. Another reason to save all the trees that we were talking about, to go separately in the water.
Right.
So-
But you're under the assumption that the engineers and the construction people are gonna do a faulty job.
No, I'm saying I want insurance in case they do. You have insurance for a car, you're not getting it into an accident on purpose, right? This is insurance that's gonna protect the town, it's gonna protect the abutters, and it's gonna protect any future residents, because they're gonna see what their responsibilities are if it floods. This is not an unreasonable request.
No, so, Rebecca, you had a suggestion?
Yeah, please.
I remember you saying that your driveway floods from our land.
I never said that. I never said that.
That water goes over the
I
land.
never said that. Never
So
said
I feel
that.
like this is something.
I
that-
never said that.
If we want to go back to the decision that we just voted on, that we just looked at, one of the main conditions that we put in our decision for subdivision or definitive plans is that the applicant shall provide for long-term maintenance of the proposed stormwater infrastructure. Evidence of a long-term maintenance agreement must be provided to the planning department, either in the form of a homeowners association agreement or other formal documentation, such that the finding, access, and preventative maintenance of the proposed stormwater infrastructure is assured for each lot within the subdivision. This shall be recorded as part of the documented in the respective deeds for each lot within the subdivision. So I believe that what he is requesting is automatically some,
Language that's
It's
already
already
there.
got it.
procedure.
Does does that boilerplate,
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. To clarify what I said before, I said that the swale to the left-hand side of my driveway has standing water. That's exactly what I said. I never said my driveway floods, ever. And I think there may be some people here that can corroborate what I said. I wish we didn't have equipment malfunction, because we'd be able to play it back.
okay,
Second thing is, there's a Conservation Commission documents with restrictions. And I want to make sure that those documents also follow the deeds for both properties. I don't know, that may be something that's gonna happen anyways, but if the property is subdivided, I wanna make sure that the Conservation Commission documents with restrictions on filling wetlands, buffers.
It's registered at the registry of deeds.
Yeah, but you,
Original,
yeah, but you,
certificate of compliance.
right, and I looked it up. However, you're gonna be getting a new deed for new property when you split the
the
lot.
Conservation Commission typically, it follows with the land, and then we add in ours that any decision of the Conservation Board is hereby accepted into the memorandum. And if there's a number on it, we'll put the number in,
So are we saying that the Conservation Commission documents that are in, are gonna follow, not from you, from them, are gonna follow both lots when it's subdivided?
Yeah, because there's gonna be
Okay.
new deeds written up for both.
Okay, that's fine. The last condition I'd like the board to consider would be that they put in a deed restriction that there's no further subdivision of both lots.
Yeah, we talked about that. That is typical, particularly on this with a single lot subdivision. Rebecca and I were talking about that as well. And if you were just here for the other hearing, that you gotta bring the road up to the standard at the time to do that. But in flavor of the board, from the board members, but that's a typical classic restriction, that you cannot further subdivide the land, and it's only meant for one house lot. And that's standard, we put that in. Right.
So what you're saying is that no matter what, there will be no further subdivision?
There's no such thing as no matter what. Because
That's-
somebody could come off of, another house off of that street, buy the house, tear the house down, put a road in, and subdivide, do some kind of other creative subdivision. And that's how these things happen. That's how Pheasant Lane happened.
That's what I want to avoid.
Yeah,
Is this
well,
something the planning board is willing to do, or is this something the planning board's saying they can't do? or
with
they
the
don't
single
want
lot,
to
at
do?
the time of this application, that restriction will go with the land. However, he is correct. If he sells his house in 20 years, and someone else comes in there and picks that house up and throws it onto the other lot, and then decides to come in with their own brand-new subdivision plan and make that a 50-foot right-of-way and go straight up, that's a whole nother thing.
So you're saying that you have no power to do?
Not
anything
into the
else?
future, no. Just that, the only thing that we have is that any further improvements to the subdivision would have to come back through the whole subdivision process all over again.
Okay.
So there'd be this process, most likely longer.
To do anything about it, if that's what you say, then I have to accept it. Okay,
Well, that's what we can do, that's the law, that's not us.
okay.
That's
No,
Mass
I know,
General
that's
law.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you can't do anything about it, then that's the way it is. I spoke to the acting fire chief. I called him, got right through to him, and I discussed this document that he put together, this write-up he had. I was confused by it for a couple reasons. There was nothing specific in that write-up regarding 142 King Street. So I asked him some specific questions about it. I asked him if he had come out and done a site visit. He said, yes, he did. And I asked him if he had any concerns, and his exact words were that he was very concerned about that slope. He was concerned about possibly bottoming out with his equipment. And he also remembered the fire that was on the property and the difficulties fighting that fire. So I just wanted to bring that up and make that comment to the board so that they would consider that.
And we addressed this, and we asked him specifically, will he make any changes that the fire commissioner said? He said yes.
I'm just telling you what
Oh,
I just...
I
okay?
understand.
Okay, so I'm just telling you what my conversation was
That's
so that
fine.
you can take it under
And
consideration.
it's addressed.
Okay, I don't
Well,
want an argument, I just want to tell you
I think
what
we just
thought.
brought that up with Rebecca, she's gonna send him a copy of that reg, where it says specifically what he's got, we'll get something hard. I mean, he said something, he doesn't like long, narrow driveways, but
When I
that's,
had a conversation with him, he said that he doesn't have any jurisdiction over it.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the other thing, he has no jurisdiction over
Said
it.
that for a single-family dwelling, he does not have any jurisdiction under the fire code. I don't know what specifically the code states, but he had stated that he has no jurisdiction, but they did in fact have concerns about the long driveway and the
Okay.
slope.
so let's reintroduce to him 3, 4, 5, that gives him jurisdiction on his input and what he needs for that slope, and then we'll get his comments. And if we have to bring him in, let's bring him in on the 3rd.
Do you want to read the note from the highway department, because Andrew just brought it up?
Yeah, I would, you guys have already seen that, right? I think we met that.
And I'll bring up the part of the problem with fighting the fire related difficulty was the hydrant on
Center Street.
out of service.
Oh. You've got 2 right there.
Was that?
You got 2 hydrants there.
Yeah,
One
but,
on either end.
Yeah.
right, but they didn't come off all of King Street.
Yeah, that would have been touched to the wood.
Actually drained in,
That's only during the, thank you. Did you see this one? Did you want to see it? That's standard, that the drainage runoff is the responsibility of the applicant and the developer at the time of the construction. What we're talking about is the right-of-way that the town has. So that's a little bit different, and he's right about that, but that's standard lingo that, we just did it for the last subdivision. They're responsible for that drainage and runoff. So that's what that was. But I think what you just read, Rebecca, would do fine.
Thank you.
About the, long-term maintenance, that's where I took that from the decision that we just voted on.
Yeah.
What do you mean, where did I find it?
No, I think that will work for this, what you just read.
For, yeah, for the
Yeah.
drainage.
Yeah. All right. Okay, and, so that, you were continuing on?
I'm continuing on to the next thing.
Yeah,
if I
go ahead.
could. Okay. I think the applicants had a misunderstanding about overhead utilities. They may have thought we wanted overhead utilities because of our concerns with the blasting, but we know that there's gonna be blasting anyway, so our biggest concern was what we felt was the unsuitability of the project with all the blasting and all the other things that were going on. I spoke to all of the abutters, and we're all in agreement that we want the utilities to be underground. We do not want overhead utilities. There was a comment made by one of the applicants about overhead utilities on King Street negating our concerns about overhead utilities, and I'd like to answer that. One, the overhead utilities on King Street were there before any of us ever came, so we knew what we were getting into when we bought there. Two, the overhead utilities service dozens and dozens of homes. They don't service just a single home. Three is having overhead utilities running adjacent to my driveway, through the woods, and just beyond the backyards of a lot of the abutters are gonna look pretty hideous, and it's objectionable to us. And 4, underground utilities are regulation and required. So
Okay.
we understand it's gonna be difficult, but this is what happens when you try and develop an extremely difficult site. So these are the things that have to be dealt with. So we want the underground we want the utilities to be underground, and the waiver request says that the abutters requested overhead utilities. That's not true. So that waiver request has to go.
I think on that particular point, last meeting, we hit that pretty good after doing the site walk. And, 3 conduits underground, even though if it waves through, and if that drainage shifts over to the side where the swale, there's plenty of room to get underground in there. I don't see an issue at all getting underground. Matter of fact, I think it'd be more of a problem for setting poles and stringing, but we're trying to keep the trees. So, for the drainage and everything else, but I do this for work, so do you. I didn't really see a problem getting underground all that. It's what?
Requesting a waiver for overhead, whether you guys wanted it or not, because it's gonna be a lot more economically feasible to get our electricity out to our house.
Economic feasibility is not a reason, or not a valid reason for a waiver. Requesting a waiver saying that the abutters requested that waiver is untrue.
Okay,
There might have been a
whatever. There's bunch of
misunderstanding.
things in this letter that are untrue, so like that
We're not going over that. We're
All
not
right,
going
that's-
over that.
Okay, so let's,
One question, please.
yeah, good.
So what I'm trying to hear from you is, you're okay with blasting? You and the abutters are okay with blasting,
It's
correct?
gonna happen anyway. It's gonna happen anyway.
How's it gonna happen?
You know, if
He's
it's
gonna
gonna-
try to
He's
hammer
gonna
it.
hammer.
I need to hammer it, and,
He's gonna try to hammer it. A lot of that whole knoll up above where you were was all hammered when the highway put it in.
Well,
So
then
he
you can
could-
hammer the lines through for
possibly
the
you could hammer it.
utilities, right?
Huh?
I said you can hammer the lines through for the utilities then.
I'm under the impression that the utilities can go underground, just from what we saw. If he's gonna maneuver the driveway like the way he wants it through, a lot of the obstacles and the ledge and everything else won't become an obstacle for 3 pipes.
You know, I've heard
Going
some
down.
contradictions about hammering and that it wouldn't be a problem to blast, and then when the utilities were gonna go overhead, it's a problem to blast. So, we want the utilities underground. All of the abutters object to overhead utilities. And
The
there's no
town
reason-
picks up the transformer feed anyway, so it's just conduit and putting in. What do you mean, no?
No.
Well, I just did it, it was not too long ago.
When I put mine in, they paid the whole thing. That
Right,
was-
right.
That was a long time ago.
Okay,
The way hammering works and the way blasting works is you can hammer off the top, and we can take the whole plane down slightly. But to blast a trench, you need a relief. Dynamite doesn't work blasting straight up or just a narrow trench. You need a relief. So in order to relieve that, it has to go into someplace. So when you blast, you need a hole for it to go, so you don't just blast a narrow little, 2-foot, 3-foot wide trench. It blasts in a series, so we move this wall moves forward, so it's a series of blasting that goes boom, 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 boom in a line, but everyone has to move forward. You can't do that in a 3-foot space. So that, it's done, I'm not a blaster, but I've been involved with a lot of it, but you need a relief. So if you don't have a relief, the energy of that blast is forced just straight up. It's like a gun barrel. So when that goes off, it pushes the rock out, which allows this rock to come into that relief, so when that blasting mat goes down, it's a whole bunch of charges, sounds like one big rumble, but what's happening is boom, 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 into the relief. You can't just blast a 2-foot wide thing. That's like saws and, it's just getting.
I get it, but Andy, on that plan, when we took a look at that and the way, I know there was a ledge on the other side, but if the utilities came in on the other side, underground,
That's
we're at the
from-
blasting end.
That's from pretty much wall to property line, but on the crest of that hill.
Let me make a comment.
It's on the right, correct, going in from King Street?
Well, where are you talking, the high point, where the
Right.
ledge is the issue?
Right, but I'm talking if everything shifted down the way, And that blasting have to go through, and if you decide whatever you're gonna do, and those detention basins go in, and you're saving trees, and conservation allows you to maneuver that drive up, and the fire chief too, then there's a way to get conduits underground without doing much. I'm hammering for sure, but I didn't see any large croppings.
It's a waiver we're requesting.
I have a comment to make about the blasting. There wasn't natural gas on King Street before I came. They blasted to put natural gas right beside King Street coming through. If you can blast to get a gas line and you can blast to get electric in, then
Yeah.
that's what we want. Thank you very much.
All right. So we got, anybody else in the residence? Yep.
Can you please step up and state your name and address?
My name is Joanne Trovel, I live at 4 Pheasant Lane, and looking at your plans to go through for the driveway, it goes in back of John's backyard, and then it comes to the point of my son's yard. So, I mean, on the plans, like, I'm ignorant to what, you know, the footage and what have you, but where it shows, it almost shows like it abuts his corner. And when you were talking earlier about putting like a buffer zone or filling in trees, is that where you intend to fill in, so that he would have privacy, that he wouldn't be looking out his, in the summertime, it's probably not gonna be as bad, but in the winter when the leaves
Oh,
grow, do you know what I'm talking
The
about?
place I was referring to is in the backyard where the rocks are piled.
It's more
But
towards
that-
Jack
Well-
Purdy's house, that rock line.
No. If-
I got it right here.
On the plans,
With the three walk walls coming together?
I'm talking right here.
focus here.
This is Center Street. Road comes out. This is the corner of your son.
Center Street, you mean?
King Street.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait a minute. Yes, here it is right here.
Yep.
So see, this is the driveway, yes?
This is to create a radius here. You know where the big boulder is there?
Yeah, we can see it from his, yeah.
Right, so this is to maintain that boulder. At one point, this road was drawn going right through that boulder. There's only one way to move that rock. You don't understand what that is.
Yeah,
It's
I'm sorry.
blasting.
Yep,
That's the only way to move that. So this radius was to try to bring this tighter in here, and we've, got some wiggle room there to try to maintain whatever space we can to get the fire trucks around here and whatever truck traffic has to get in without moving that rock.
Okay.
Because that's gonna maintain,
but you understand
require blasting.
but you understand my concern. I mean, you're coming up here with the driveway, this is his rock wall here,
Mhm.
okay? So how close are you? So where is his privacy? Do you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
he's got some
But is
woods
the
in the
driveway
back
20
in the-
feet from the wall? That's what she's asking.
No,
Yeah.
not much.
No, it's
Not much,
probably,
not much, because I look out, I went in his backyard and looked, there's not a lot. So when you're coming up, and you go to make that turn, you're making that turn right there on the tip of where his rocks
To
end.
stay out of the buffer zone and to get around that big rock.
No, I understand, I understand
She wants to know
what
you're
you're
planting.
doing.
Are you
What
planting?
Are you gonna screen it?
Are you gonna screen it so,
Couldn't he screen it? If he wanted to?
That's where the buffer zones come in that are in the reg, so.
Right, and I think for the benefit, and when I tell you this, I'm new to this plan stuff here. It probably, maybe for the abutters, maybe when we're new, we come, we wanna see what's going on. If you show, I know when I've seen things being built, you kinda show the abutters, this is what it's gonna look like. And a little bit more fancier, tough. So if you're gonna show me, okay, this is where my driveway's coming up, and in here I understand how close I'm gonna get, but we're gonna do trees, or we're gonna do something, so he's not gonna see my driveway. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, looking at this, I'm saying, wow, look how close he's coming to his backyard. You know what I mean? Here's his rocks coming out here, and your driveway's coming right here. And if I'm looking at this correctly. And you have to understand his concerns. I mean, it's just.
what would you like?
I don't know what I would like, to tell you the truth. I don't know what the best thing is to do. My thing is, it upsets me as a butter to come up and listen to you people and not take our concerns. I understand it's his property, I understand she wants to build, she wants to downsize, she is every winter paying the money that I paid for my home, and my son paid for his home. I like a little bit of give and take, and it kind of upsets me that I'm listening to you, and it's like, I see no problem, I see this. You know, just take our concerns a little bit. You know, I understand money, I understand things, but if it's gonna look a lot better for me, having your stuff underground.
You have the right to plant trees too.
Why should we pay money to plant trees when we have private trees?
In the,
That's our land.
Our land is your
Okay.
privacy?
All right, guys, all right,
Right.
we're not gonna make it an argument.
I know.
All right.
Right now, it is our privacy. Do you understand? I'm not saying he doesn't have we're not saying he doesn't have a right. You have to understand where we're coming from.
I do, and in the regulation that we wrote, there is, and he mentioned it too, and we mentioned it to Andy about a landscape plan, okay? There
That's
are,
why I addressed him,
there are-
because he did talk about filling, and I was curious where that abuts my son's backyard.
in the regulation, there's buffer zones that will be going in. So he's gonna try to not cut any trees, which is why he's meeting the conservation, which is why we talked about doing this driveway weave and leaving all those big mature trees. I know where you're talking about in that area, that if there are areas that the board sees fit where trees and buffer zones have to go in to restore the privacy, guess what? They go in. It's in the regulation. We wrote that 20-something years ago.
Well, I'm not familiar with that. 'cause
So,
I'm
so,
new.
well, we put that in there, and we did ask for that, and so we're gonna make sure that what's in there. And sometimes, and I can tell you this happened more once, where we thought we were gonna put trees, okay? We didn't need them, but then we needed them elsewhere, okay? And so you go back in.
He's probably gonna have to take trees somewhere where he's not gonna take trees. I mean, everybody has their own concerns, but my concerns is the fact that, you know, my son has a young child, you know, it's just concerns. I understand he has his rights, and I understand what you're saying, we can plant our own trees. But you're building and you're affecting us, so it'll please the abutters, so we can say, you know what, go ahead, go with your plans, this is what I'm gonna do, you know what I mean? It just seems like,
I think you're used to it being wasted right now, you know.
well, that's why I bought my house. I mean,
Yeah, it's-
that's why I bought, you know.
I hear you, but that is in there, it is something we're gonna visit, and if Andy was to say, and Heather say, hey, guess what? In that corner, we're gonna put 50 trees, guess what? You're probably not gonna need 50 trees, but somewhere else, we would need a good portion of those trees. And we identified one of them, which he already told us what he was gonna do before we even asked, was up where that rock pile was, because we saw that was an obvious one.
I don't know where it is, I've never been.
It's further up the road, there's a big bunch of cement blocks up there right now.
Now that the trees are gone, I
Right.
can see through my son seems to be, and John seems to be right there where the driveway's coming up, so I can see from their property
Right.
what's going on.
So-
And I've seen and I've taken and looked at other driveways in the town of Groveland, and how people have gone in through in between other people's homes. I've seen all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the fact that we are not against their project, we just want the least amount of impact on us.
And your concern makes very well to us.
Excuse me?
Your concern matters to us. We
Well,
do take it into consideration.
I hope so.
We do.
I hope so, but it kinda, I'm just sitting back listening, and, you know, we can all get along, you know what I mean? Everybody has
You know,
their,
we sit up here as volunteers, and then you tell us that we're not taking consideration of all your concerns. That's what upsets us also. Believe me.
I worked in public office for many, many years.
Me
so
too. I
understand
believe me,
what
and
it's
I still
like.
work in it,
I
and I am
understand.
here, all right?
I
Was born in Groveland, okay? I built many houses in Groveland, so.
I understand.
Okay.
It's just a concern, that's all.
Well, one thing, just to make clear, just so we get it on the, as everybody knows, this is very important, what you folks did, is to put this stuff in, and so we can review it, they can review it, the engineers review it, the board reviews it, and everybody goes through. So this is important that you did, and this is yours, this is public record, okay, so this goes into the file, okay? If any plan in this town meets the regulation, it flies, but it's gotta meet the regulations. And then our job is to explain the regulation, and get applicants through the regulation, and blend in everybody's concerns, and see where it goes. Most of the time, from what I've seen so far of what they're submitting, they've been very amenable to some things, they've got some great suggestions, hopefully Concom will go with it, that's out of our jurisdiction, and what they come back with that. But, and I'll tell them the same thing, if it meets the reg, it flies, and if it meets the reg, it flies. So just everybody understand that. But buffer zones have been a problem all the time coming through, and I can't tell you how many times that we've had to go back and replant trees. And you wanna see the biggest one? Stonebridge, go right down there. But they moved in, pushed the houses back, and everybody thought that was their backyard. And one particular individual cleared out over 200 feet of trees, and guess what? He had to put it all back. So that was the largest planning board enforcement in the town's history. And when you added up all those 10 houses and all the trees they had to put back in, it was pretty close to 500. So we're very sensitive to that going through. And we've made corrections, and you mentioned it here about the deeds. That's why that's in the regulation now, that any changes goes with the deeds, because we found out that builders were buying the lots that weren't here at these hearings and didn't understand what those zones were. And we shut that subdivision down for a good year until we got it straightened out. And so then we found out that the conservation restriction and what the board had laid out didn't go with the new builder. He just, I got a building lot, I'm gonna go build. Well, he didn't know about that. And then the homeowners moved in and they didn't know about it, and next thing you know, they were all issued chainsaws and swimming pools on that one side. So we do see things and we do plug holes. Rebecca pointed out a couple today, actually, we're gonna work on later. Not with this, but with other stuff. So we do take that very seriously, and the buffer zones, they're gonna put them in where they want them, because they wanna be sheltered too, and we're gonna find some holes out there somewhere along the way. We're gonna go, you know what? We're gonna look from all angles. We're gonna look from your side, we're gonna look from their side, and that's where usually we find out where to put those. We've even put trees up because headlights were going into people's houses off Stevenson, so that's happened too, where you pull out and your headlights are going right in the way. So that's happened before too, so. Yeah, Bob, you wanna recognize him?
Yes.
I want to say that I think, at least according to the stuff that I put in that document I put together, that you guys have answered most of my questions. I think, you're doing what you can as far as what you can with the regulations and things like that, so I appreciate that. I think the only real contention at this point that we have would be the overhead utilities. I think that's gonna be a problem.
Is what?
The overhead utilities are gonna be a problem.
So the question I gotta ask you is, what if they can't, if the blasting or whatever doesn't succeed? What's your recommendation?
How is blasting not gonna succeed?
I have no idea.
They put gas lines all up King Street, and they
Well,
had-
you know what?
and-
Let the engineers figure it out, and then we'll see what goes on from there.
If it's possible, and there isn't a valid reason for the waiver, you have to follow the regulations by the intent of what the regulation is. And I think the intent of the regulation for overhead utilities is aesthetics. So if it's possible to get it in there, regardless of the cost and the effort, if it's possible to go in, I mean, water can't go in, I didn't understand that, but I know now that you can't get water in. I'm not gonna argue that. There probably should be a waiver for it, and the waiver would be accepted, but I understand that. Overhead utilities, you're gonna have a hard time convincing us that overhead utilities have to go in.
The underground utilities was written in the regulation for a reason, and it's not just aesthetics. It's also for maintenance, storms, and other stuff, but, flooded pipes can blow transformers up too, so, depending on where they go. But
You've got
this,
1,100 feet going back there.
have you been to my street?
No,
At the end of Rocky Woods Road, that was all poles. I petitioned the town back in the 90s to sink all those. The town gave me the permission, but they didn't do it. I did it. I sunk 5 telephone poles, put a tree in the center, made a cul-de-sac, and did all of that work myself. And then the town came in, pulled the feeder, and set a transformer. Cost me a
Case in point for
fortune.
underground utilities, thank you
Okay,
very much.
But yes,
Appreciate it.
I know, but that's why it's serious. And I still think we can get it in there, but I wanna, let the engineers figure out some stuff. But, if they can get the driveway and conservation moved, I think they have a lot more leeway, but, I'm hoping they don't have to go through, and I'd rather see them hammer, like Bob said,
Yeah, I
than
know.
do any blasting out there, but
And
we'll
I'm
see.
sorry that, things get heated, and I'm one of the worst hotheads, so I'm sorry things get heated. Some of us don't understand what's going on, emotion involved, but we want to see the regulations followed, and we want to see things done, and you guys will make the judgments on the waivers. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you want a motion to continue to the 3rd?
Yep. Moving to December 3rd. Yep.
So motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
What else we got?
Discussion and possible votes on Nelson Street Storage Facility.
I'm out.
Oh, no, what'd you do with it, Brad?
The plan, it's good.
Yeah, oh, right there. Wait, sorry.
Can you please state your name and address?
Brad Legal, 16 Evergreen Lane, Groveland, Mass.
Wait, hold on, wait a second, Brad.
Impeach me.
Well, thank you. Everybody's got different expertise on this board. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're trying to move on so we can get out of here tonight, thank you.
He said he would conservation.
There you go. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, so I'm seeking a temporary CO on the storage facility. We have a letter from Jones and Beach. It's substantially complete. Bindings going in this week for weather, fencing next week. We've got a few occupants, I've got a few people that want to move in. And I've reached out to Sam, and it comes back to the planning board. So here we are.
And TEC's been doing the construction monitoring for the site, so I believe that Pete would be able to speak to the conditions of the site as they exist, today or last week.
The 14th, which was last Thursday. Have you all seen the field report, most recent one? I haven't had a copy of it. These pictures.
I have not. Is it you? I have not seen that. Any pictures?
So the structures are mostly complete, and that's what it looks like from the exterior.
It's signed off electrical, fire department signed off, building inspector signed off, except for the CO.
So it's really just the site issues.
Just the site issues, which are taken care of. Can't do much until the Cape Cod berm is in, and then after that's done, fence poles will be set. K&I will be in there, they'll be looming, putting grass mats back down.
Where's the Cape Cod berm now?
It's going basically around the pond, around the whole site,
Yeah, yeah.
basically, so the storm water will feed into the right structures, that feed into the, the bio detention pond.
So, you all can see in the pictures, the pavement's not down yet. I would consider it, mostly stabilized. The subgrade is all compacted. I think you still need some fencing around the, the pond, like you just said. You can't-
Guardrail is in,
Yeah.
so guardrail on Nelson Street has been constructed.
I've seen it.
On a safety standpoint, we were able to get that in. So as soon as they set the berm, the fencing will start next week. Top of the wall, around the pond, because they've got riprap to put around the poles before they stretch the fencing.
Are you on?
The water. Wait, K&I's gonna do that.
When will it-
Supposed to be done this month. Weather permitting.
And in accordance with the paving schedule?
I don't think we need a paving schedule for that because it's going on the top of Nelson Street. So as soon as the paving's done, they're coming back in, and I believe they're gonna stay there until it's finished.
And we
So-
removed the berm at the end of Nelson Street, correct? Originally, there was going to be like a little berm at the
Yeah,
end of
storm
Nelson.
water.
We don't need it because we walked out there, we noticed that there's a storm drain that was all plugged up. Once they removed all the silt out of the storm drain, it started acting the way it was supposed to be. We're not getting any water on Nelson Street.
They're actually working.
Any extra water that we're getting out of probably the body shop where the gutters and downspouts, that detention pond at that 3-inch rain captured everything. Captured off my building, captured off of Sewell Street because Sewell Street can't migrate over to the next lot. So we're taking the water around the building and that detention pond filled up 3/4 of the way and then was gone and within 3 days.
You already voted on that, didn't you?
Hmm.
So that's really not an issue one.
You're just doing binder, or you're doing final pavement?
Gonna do binder, let it settle.
And what date are you looking to open for the OC?
Like to start moving people in on Saturday. Paving should be done, Cape Cod berm should be in. Fencing gets set next week. Gate operator the pad has been poured,
Okay, speaking
the
of.
loops have been it.
Gates in. Now, I drove by that at night a few times. What are those timers set for on that building? Is that lit up like that all night long?
Yeah.
That looks like a UFO landing site, like you wouldn't believe. Is there a way, how is that on? Is that a main? Is that a main through or
It's on a
photocell?
photocell.
It's on a photocell.
And the lights are one candle to the pond. They
When
don't
you drive
impede
by on
anybody
Salem
else's
Street?
lot.
In Salem Street,
Yeah,
it's lit up. You're gonna have the same problem, I think, out there because of the
But-
height, but.
it's a secure site. I went to the chief. He basically said for the safety of his officers, we agreed on a lighting schedule.
No, I don't disagree with that. What I was thinking is something, the same amount of candle power and the same fixtures exactly where they are, but instead of a photocell, depending on how those are wired, put in 2 motion sensors that click in when you open in the gate.
I think if you read the letter back from the chief, he doesn't want motion sensors. We decided, with the approval of the police department, to light it up on the dusk to dawn. And I believe there's a letter in there from from the chief.
Well, it makes sense from safety, but just from the resident side coming this way, those,
But we knew there would be, once you take down, the brush that are in there and some
Yeah.
trees, and a place has never been lit up, I don't think there's been any complaints. I don't think anything
It's bright.
touches off. Oh, yeah, I mean,
I like lights, and it's bright.
It's protected.
That's what I'm saying. I
they're
just
all
don't like-
LED, and they're all down,
Yeah.
except for by the wall.
I think it's on the hill when you come in, they hear you.
There's basically one area designated for landscaping, and I believe there's 2 or 3 trees to go in on the abutter side.
There's nothing back there on the sides. It's the body shop and that one house, yeah, and then Ryan.
My building back there.
Yeah.
So basically on, that gray house, on the Salem Street side, we're keeping the trees, and we're gonna add a couple more trees. When you come into where the gate entrance is gonna be, there's a planting section on the right-hand side. That's gonna be lumen planted.
Well, it's just my 2 cents on that.
Cause it was a construction site when we were last there. Safety-wise, people are coming in Saturday,
Once it's done, there'll be a PTI operating gate.
so like this Saturday, let's say people are moving in, is there gonna be like backhoes driving around?
No, that's what I'm waiting for. Once the paving's done and the backhoes are gone and the equipment's gone, K&R probably won't start until Monday. I'll just let a couple people move in. I'm not gonna go full bore, and right now, it's not really not storage season, it's too cold, people don't wanna, people do not wanna hang out and put stuff in storage sheds.
How does the temporary CO work?
It allows,
This is a 24-hour operation, right?
no, it's got hours, 6 AM to
Oh,
7
so I
PM.
can't come in at 2 o'clock in the morning, punch a button, the gate would open up, and I could get access to my,
Correct.
okay,
I mean, if there's a plumber in there and he has a dire emergency,
sure.
if we have what we had in Lawrence, Andover gas explosions, and the guy gotta get in, I mean,
Sure,
he's gotta go.
sure. But for the most part, you're regulating the time, so for safety
Given it's
reasons.
closed, Christmas is closed, we've
Yep.
already established that with the board, so
What's the recommendation from the building inspector? That's his call.
The building inspector, because of the decision that we issued, it says prior to a CO, it needs our sign off, so he.
So he wants our pre-approval approval, is that it?
So it would be on the board to say whether or not that he's met enough of the conditions to get a temporary CO, which will then be issued by the building commissioner per the conditions and standards that he sets forth, and then whether or not, when he comes back for a full CO, he's met the remainder of the
final.
conditions.
And while I have the board's attention, I probably would go with Pete's on board with this, once the grass mats are back down. The site right now is basically anything, the wall is all stable, 100% I'd say 100% grass up there, wouldn't you agree? That was done in July, so grass mats and the grass is about, I don't know, about
Yeah,
10 inches
it
tall.
looks stable. I didn't see any problems with the runoff or anything like that. My thing was that, yeah, right, it's the only thing back there, and at night.
My
coming
building's
from-
pretty bright down there too.
Yeah, well, you can see it now, but, because you couldn't before. But coming down Salem Street, depending on which direction you're going, at night, I mean, it hits you. I mean, it's bright, and it's just the lights that shine up towards Salem Street out across from Chester
It's
Center.
gonna hit you because nothing, it's a
Nothing's
black
there,
hole,
I know.
correct.
That's exactly right. I'm surprised the residents on that side haven't.
Because it doesn't
Rattled them
filter,
yet.
it doesn't filter into their lot. And I've already talked to, I've talked to the Williams down there, and he's one of the guys who wants to move in. Go figure. So,
Have we met everything on the,
I don't see
I mean, I
the
see
issue.
everything.
I don't mind
stable.
issuing a temporary CO.
We're not issuing it.
If, once the fencing's in, that's all it, fencing, especially around the pond area and everything.
When's that going in? Or
this
is-
week.
This week. So
Paving should be done,
conditional
Cape
CO?
Cod berm should be done, and then
The
fencing
fence-
starts next
fencing's
week.
going in, yeah, and then
So the items to be done are, for temp CO, fencing, pavement,
Cube copper,
and what?
which is part of the paving, the
yeah,
berm.
which is part of the
Okay.
pavement, yeah.
The security gate,
Yeah, when's your gate getting installed?
They installed the loops underground
Mhm.
before the binder.
Sure.
That was done Thursday. We installed the pad, all the loops brought into the pad. So as soon as they set the post.
Yep.
As soon as he hangs the gate, the opening
operational.
and the PTI system will be installed.
so those are the only three things, or are there more?
Yeah, but that's not gonna get him CO for this weekend.
No.
What's the duration of the temporary
I've never gone for a temporary CO. I've got a guy
I-
who keeps
it's
keeps
usually less
asking
than
to
a
move
month.
in.
I was gonna say, I would believe it's only for a month, and can be extended, I believe.
And I think all these issues should be addressed within a month. Hopefully by December 3rd, we've got a, fully operated facility.
How many units are they moving in?
So far, 2.
Hmm.
Haven't really advertised, and just fear of
He's on a roll.
people coming down there and,
How many do you have rented out?
no, I didn't rent
Oh,
out
just the
anything.
two?
Just the two.
I haven't rented, taken a dime from anybody until.
Until you
I
move
get
them in?
permission from the board. Correct.
Why not ask those two to move in under temporary, under supervision and get everything
Because I
done
don't
and then
think
get the
that's
temporary.
the letter
CO?
of the law, and I happen to sit on a board and.
Still gotta do that. Well, no, I get that.
He needs a CO before anybody, because then he's responsible for.
And if something
Right.
happens.
Yeah,
and-
That's what I mean. You'd still be on the hook, but,
Yeah, no, I don't blame him for not wanting to do that.
I don't know. I say those three things anyway, because you gotta have the gate up to get everybody in, you got the pavement.
Can you get those done by Friday? And then get this fencing?
I'll have the paving hopefully done by Friday, weather permitting.
Yeah, it's the gate, that's the
Today's
problem.
Tuesday, so.
But if it skipped a week,
Listen, this was supposed to be all done in October. I thought I'd be a happy guy, it would be all
have you looked
done.
at Sunset Drive? What did that take, 14 years? That's
God.
only 3 houses? So, that's a weird one here. I would, my personal opinion is the one member is just those three things that need to be done. If you can get them done, and then it goes over to the building inspector for the, he issues it anyway.
Right, essentially, would the motion be that you would need him to have the fencing, the pavement, the berm all completed, and you would authorize me to let the building commissioner know that a temporary CO could be issued for the.
Yeah, just the
correct.
safety stuff, you know?
Okay,
That's all.
You don't wanna, like you said, you don't wanna get anybody injured out there or whatever.
and again, as far as the erosion of bond, when does it please the board and TEC, about lifting that?
Yeah, I can,
Once that stuff's in, you go look at it, do a site.
oh, it's all in now, all the erosion control stuff?
All the erosion's done.
Put the paving and.
No, the stuff for the temp CO.
Right, I understand the Cape Cod berm is gonna, part of the erosion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go out there, we'll be out there Thursday.
So is the
Well,
paving.
After it's done, should there be a reduction, or should be a full lifting of the bond? Once the maps are done,
You would need full sign-off for every,
You gotta,
all the,
well, we go with the maintenance for, a season.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, because you guys still gotta put top coat on, right? And everything else? like
Correct.
that. Yeah,
I'll
so,
do that in the spring.
so it's usually a big reduction, and then when you're finally done, you come in with the, let it stabilize.
You know what the bond amount is?
I think it's a $40,000 bond.
So figure out what would be last, and then submit a request to the board for release up until holding whatever it is for the top coat and whatever stabilization and the landscape plan for next year.
I think top coat would be dictated under the erosion bond, would it?
For runoff, if you got any, and water.
Cape Cod berm is gonna capture all that and
Yeah.
distribute it
You'll
into
have
the
to see how
catch
it might
basins
be
and
like
the
a small
ponds.
amount depending, but I wouldn't say the final.
Besides, you still gotta get it done anyway, I mean,
I'm aware.
so. I always like those from a,
Let me see. The way this is going, probably not, no.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
all right.
That's fine. By the next meeting, we should pretty much be,
Finished.
you guys should be pleased.
Good. Good on that. Did you want that motion?
To adopt those 3 conditions prior to CO, temporary CO.
For temporary CO.
Thank you, board.
Yeah.
Who seconded it? You said?
Second.
Second.
Oh, second, good. Did we vote? All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, what else we got?
Okay, we got 2 more things, and, let's see. Sunset Circle, Wallace Capital, bond release.
So the roadway was accepted at town meeting in April 2019, and the applicant is now requesting for a formal release of the remaining bond. The total is $24,061.32.
So the street was accepted?
It was
It
accepted
was.
at town
And-
meeting.
Wow. And so last I talked to Water and Sewer, they were doing something with that hydrant. What happened?
It's all done.
They moved the hydrant. It's moved into the right of way.
No kidding. Where'd it go? Left or right? Or did it go over on the right side?
Right.
Just within the strip, the grass strip, I believe.
Right, yep.
Oh, good. On the right-hand side, right where the trees were?
It's on the right here, yeah,
So coming down the road, it's on the...
yeah. They didn't have to get into his driveway or nothing.
Yeah, I didn't think so,
Huh?
yeah.
They didn't touch his driveway, no, so.
I thought they could've just brought it in there, so that worked. So
They
we
went
got all
to
the, oh, wait a
seeded
minute.
where
You know
it
what's
was?
missing
Yeah,
there?
everything exceeded, everything.
That street light's missing.
You don't even know it's there,
We
really.
can't do anything now.
What do you mean?
Legally, we have no,
Yeah,
we
the
have
town
no
accepted it.
claims over that money. That is
Okay,
money-
so, but,
It was accepted by town meeting. We took the vote, the Board of Selectmen approved the laying out of the road. We have no legal authority to withhold that money now that it is a legally accepted public way.
Yep, now everything's
that's the
on
fee in the way.
town.
What about the utilities that weren't placed at the time? There's only one light pole missing. It goes right next to the transformer.
Yeah, but it was accepted the way it was.
It was accepted from the
All
town
right,
the way it was.
so then this board has to send a letter to the light department and just remind them that that one light post at the end of the cul-de-sac to the left where the transformer pad needs to be set in. Since the town accepted the road, it's on their budget, I guess, but that's gotta be put in. That was the last thing that,
But that's separate of releasing the bond.
it's kinda like hand in hand, because we're going, if they accepted the road and we released the bond, that goes with the same letter, we've released the bond because the town accepted the road, and therefore the light has to be placed into somewhere around that transformer in the back of the cul-de-sac per the design. It was one of the
Shown
last
on
things.
the accepted plan.
It was one of the last punch list items for that subdivision. And I'm sure the residents or the townspeople didn't know there was a street light missing. That's probably why.
But
they
now the
accepted
town needs to pay for that streetlight because
it. Well, the Groveland Light is a private entity, so
now the Groveland Municipal Light, we're gonna dictate that they must spend.
we're gonna
that
tell them
money.
that that's missing and the town accepted the road and it's on to them, but that light needs to be there. And if, shame on us
They
for
don't have
not
to put it in,
standing
they
up.
don't want to.
So shame on us if we didn't get the point across at town meeting, but to close it out, if they do it, they do it. They don't, they don't. But we need to just remind them that the road's been accepted, and they might have it already, they might have it just sitting over there and they haven't said it. They've done that a lot, where they have it and they just gotta go sit it in the ground. And it's just 2 wires that go into the thing. so it's not a big deal. But we need to remind them that we're releasing the bond, and the street light is still not there, and if they could please place it in accordance to the punch list item. And if they do, they do, they don't, they don't, and then we're done, we have completed our mission, because everything else was done. What does the board think?
Well, I just want to make a motion to release the bond,
Yep.
because that's all that
I second it.
counts right now. The letter to the light department is still separate from releasing the bond, because it has nothing to do with Wallace
Nothing
Capital.
to do with the road
Okay.
anymore, so.
So, call for the vote on the bond?
Pardon?
Call for the vote?
Yeah, it's been seconded.
All in
Second
favor?
it. It was
Yep,
already
so we need a vote?
Yeah, so all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Put all in
Okay,
favor.
then can we float a motion to get a letter to the light department and let them know about that we've released the bond and the street's accepted?
All right. Sewell Street review, or any comments? Sewell Street?
Is
off
that a
of
yes or
SU
no?
Way.
They said this,
Are we gonna go the motion on that or not?
Oh, what?
On the light for Sunset, that's all. I just wanna close it out.
Oh,
It's their authority. They'll put it in or they won't. That's all. I don't see a harm on it. But it gets it off our department. They can't say you didn't ask for that. Say, yep, here's a letter. We sent to the light department. It's their ball of wax. That's it. That's the only thing that was left on that.
Yes, you can ask.
we can ask, I guess.
No, that's it. Just ask.
All right.
I mean,
Thank
is it actually on a punch list?
Yeah, it was on a punch list to get that one street light in. And it's, the transformer's right there, so there's no digging, there's no nothing. It's earth. They just stick it in. All that. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next. Sewell Street.
And for Sewell Street, the ZBA has requested that the board review the proposed site plan for a comprehensive permit before them and provide some comments for their consideration. The documents were sent to you on Thursday when the budget was out, and the applicant has provided the plan in front of you for the plan to review and is here to answer any questions that you may have.
I think I have to.
direct to butter.
I'm a direct abutter. And a neighbor. I'll take a seat out there.
Wow.
Lucky. I tried to leave
No, we
before
can't.
and I wasn't
We haven't
allowed.
closed the
Yeah,
hearing.
we'll close the hearing.
There's been a lot of misconception of the layout back there, so we figured that what you're looking at there kind of gives everyone an idea of where things lay out on the property, because people get confused as to what's where, and, you know, they thought that when swing set, and you guys, yeah, as the butter, you know, 50 cents. And that's I think that's 100 scale,
Okay.
so,
How many units you looking at?
240.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Well, four
Even
separate buildings.
still.
Why is this one infiltration basement so close to the wetlands? This,
Great spot for it.
okay.
Right at the 25-foot line.
Mhm.
It's actually, we have another deal going with Natural Heritage, we just acquired that 10-acre parcel,
Okay.
and, so letting me use 1 acre of it for stormwater management, so we see the other 9 acres, and with some new nesting like that.
Okay.
We'll lift that up to a better grade they want. Turtles like to face southeast, I guess, or southwest, I don't know.
I want some.
Oh, well,
The one parking space per unit? Give or take.
1.75.
Sure. Whatever it is.
They actually provide more parking than required.
48 spaces in each
Building.
And so as you come up the hill, those buildings, the first 2 buildings are kind of like walkouts. So if the garage is at grade in the back, so there'll be 2 walk-ins, you know, there'll be like a garage lobby and a first floor lobby to the elevator.
Building's identical.
All identical, yeah, they're all online, I didn't bring any pictures.
Are they still
The
4
other
stories?
architect was showing me them.
4 stories with full
I'm just
parking.
curious more than anything. It hasn't.
But they're 4
could care
high,
less,
Right,
they step, you know, they're all different peaks.
right.
The side, I think, are 2.5, and they get followed they come in.
Yeah, that's gonna look like Emerald City as you coming around here. It's gonna be an adjustment. I'd say that. Nichols Village was too, but it's pretty enough.
It's gonna be nice, it's gonna be tied all into the trails. It's, you know, we're lowering the rock down, I don't know if anyone's been out there, but the rock coming down.
Yeah,
You
so,
know, that was basically the grade where everything was removed from the back and the cement pit and all that. And put everything back to grade.
where was the Blue Lagoon? Is that over here?
So this, back in the day, when aggregate quarried this, the cliffs are right in here.
Yeah.
Okay. All the runoff came down here and in here.
Okay.
So their blue lagoons are 1, 2, and 3, were kind of like that.
Okay.
They all washed in here, and then it went back out to Brindlebrook here, you know, as it settled through the 3 basins. There's still 2 there.
Did they clear up, or?
Yeah, they dried up actually this year, now that I got things under control and working, but, it's unfortunate, I tried to utilize those, because I could get used in the settlement basins, and they just, pond, they just weren't having it. So now it's like pond, brook, it's just, you know, what are you gonna do? Would've been nice to go in and clean those up, put a nice outlet structure on the end, clean them up.
They wouldn't let you clean them?
No. Would've been nice, 'cause they're already there, and the problem is, those ponds, they're still upland between that and the brook.
Yeah.
So now you lose 100 foot
They
buffer
can't
from the brook,
discharge.
and you lose, you know, and then you have that upland, then you have the pond, so it's like 400 feet.
Right.
300 feet you lose out on that.
Do they pull toxins out of there, or they just?
No, there are, I do actually have those analytics.
Yeah.
So I got all the clays in there, there's a substantial amount of silt that's been brought in, all the clays covered.
Oh, I see.
There's no more silt, and I know, I mean, I was in town since 2001, so I remember that blue clay, and when I got there, you know, yeah, I mean, it was, the stuff would just run, and it would run through 1,000 feet of grass, and hit the water, it would just stay. So, to address that, it's all covered up and moving along that, you know.
Everything in the way back here is gonna remain undisturbed.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think I got 40 acres total, and National Head is gonna get 21. So, yeah, everything in the back, I don't know.
All
what
this.
this plan is,
The grading plan.
Yeah, so
So all
it's
this.
kinda like this,
Sure,
is going to National Heritage and all that,
all of that.
all that,
Perfect.
yeah. And they want this for nesting.
Sure.
Does this tie into the back to, Anderson's Way, Trust? The 30 acres that was back there that
Oh, yeah, yeah,
eventually
it all
goes
ties
over?
in, yep, yep, yep.
So that
Yeah,
was,
so
that's
it'll
the
all-
big green.
it'll get
area.
amended, yep.
Yeah, this is all National Heritage,
Right.
all over there, then you got Meadow Pond.
So what piece did you buy and who had it? You said you're giving them 9 acres.
DiBiase had this.
Is this part of that, oh, that's 10 acres.
10 acre lot. But what's nice about this is there's access with uptack. You know, so
You can
Yeah.
actually get to
trails
it.
and stuff, there you can drive right up the park, but there's actually culvert pipe that's in there, but the Heritage is like, you know, they don't like things on display, they want things quiet.
No, they don't modify anything unless
Yeah,
necessary.
they don't want a parking lot, they don't want sign, they don't want anything. They don't
Yeah,
want
no, you
anyone
need to
knowing
give
about
it to Greenbelt if you want them to actually make an improvement.
But I guess there's a lot of data in the area, and that's fine, I mean, I'm not looking to put 1,090 units, you know, what do I need? I mean, there's still plenty of room, there's, like, even the islands, people are concerned that it's like, even these islands out there, these are quarter-acre islands by the buildings, you know, that garage door's, you know, over 100 feet from the road. It's-
Right.
These are massive areas, it's not.
Yeah, the scale throws
Yeah,
people
it's
off.
not 4 buildings with a puddles and a pool in the middle on 3 acres, you know, it's, I mean, these are.
No, it's big, it's
Yeah,
it's a
you're
big
driving around
complex.
there, You're cruising around in there.
Yeah, it's a big complex. I mean, that's only 40 units over there, you know, so this is gonna be,
The buildings aren't, they're not crazy, it's 200 feet long by like 75, 74 wide.
It's 4 floors, 3 floors?
yeah, 4 floors, they said. What's the age restriction on that?
None, I'll take whoever wants. No, we kicked that around, because I'm going through the
can't put Groveland residents' preference on there, can you?
Section 8?
Well, that's what we were talking about, yeah.
Nope.
How many affordable units?
Well, the town will get credit for all 192,
Right.
Yeah.
but there'll be 10%.
Do you feel in some,
I'm sorry, 25.
do you feel in some ways we
25%?
might have to add extra police officers
I'm sorry, we just had.
due to the number of new residents?
But they're 20% of the data.
We look at that, we've gone through with police and fire so
Sure.
far, I mean, my
It gives
personal
us a buffer,
opinion,
it's about 30.
So that's the thing. how much-
It should still,
is equipped
I
with
can't imagine it jumps
handle
30
town
units.
of 600 people, 700 people. I don't see why there'd be a need for another police.
I do.
We'll see.
I do. Fire too, for that matter, but yeah. I can see, Are you selling those or renting those? So what's the, you must have a marketing price now.
They're not affordable. You know, they say they are, but I mean, I think it's 1,800 for 2 bedrooms, the affordable rate.
Right,
So
something like that.
That's the 80%,
So what's like a 3-bedroom?
26, 27,
Yeah.
you know?
Is that the largest that you have there?
Yeah, 10% of 3 bedrooms have to be under state law.
Okay,
10%
so 3-bedroom is the largest there?
Yeah.
Okay,
And then you have some 1-bedrooms with dens and stuff like that.
yeah.
So it's 10% threes, then it's 50/50 ones and twos.
Private trash pickup?
Yep, all compacted. On-site management, dogs are tested for DNA, dog poop on the lawn, gets tested, you get a fine.
Ooh,
Second
fun.
time you get a fine, third time you get evicted, so it's all,
Breed restrictions?
I'm sorry?
Breed restrictions or just,
I don't know, that's the management company, and that's why the number of units is there, right? It's gotta be feasible to the state, right? I think if they say 150 is the number to have a management company on site, right? And you need a management company on site, otherwise it turns to trash.
right,
So, and then the state has all the other implications, it's so costly down the road, so that's why the number seems large, but, I think it's the community at the end of the day, I do, I don't,
Right.
I mean, it's something the town needs, it's called out for in the housing production plan, that site
Mhm.
specifically.
I see
Wrap
there's,
it up.
I see
400
there's-
kids,
Well, I mean, we have studies done from Rutgers, I think it's 72 max, I mean, but there was a guy in here last week from Minco saying they did, 189, 82 dogs.
yeah, it's a,
So,
we did the max, I was here, when we did the max density build-out for this town, and included this area, and it also included the Center Street with Strawberry Fields. And the minimum max building out, population build-out was 10.5, the maximum was 14.5 total population, and we figured somewhere it would fall in between, but that was 200-plus units minimum on Center Street with a maximum, if you took every inch of that 235 acres out there, and not that you could, but if you did, there was gonna be something to the tune of 1,278 units out there. And so that was one of our pitches to get that for the $350,000 originally that it was for sale for 20-something years ago. So I'm glad we pulled that out of the equation. Yeah, they went up a tad. So, that wasn't our board, though. So, but anyway, but yeah, that is gonna kick up the population. He's absolutely right about, public safety.
I was a
Absolutely
retired
in here.
cop for 20 years, and 6 years working in the projects of Boston. I understand the demographics of so many people in such a close neighborhood. It scares me sometimes. And I'm not gonna say that this is what it's come down to, but again, you're looking at a lot of people in a confined area, and I've been around, seen enough issues.
we're talking about section 8, you know, part of my bluntness, but that's pretty ignorant, right?
Okay.
You're
I'm
talking-
just asking- I'm
you're
just-
already laying out a character that's gonna associate with the, you know, I don't think that's fair.
I'm just trying to get an understanding.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Simple
I
as
think
all
he
that.
meant density, not necessarily
Yeah.
character.
But what's to say we need another police officer or a
No,
density?
I can tell you right now that just looking at this, and for public safety, which is in the regulation, it's also in that other section, 3, 4, 5, that they shall look at, along with the selectmen too, about, you know, if you did have 400 kids, where are they going to school? Okay, extra fire department, police patrols, they're gonna have to patrol this because of the density, particularly at night, out here in the woods.
Under 72 children, so if they say 400 kids, I don't.
I'm going for a max, when I plan, 20, and my time in here, we go max out.
The schools are down to over 400 kids right now.
you know, nobody thought kids were gonna be in our neighborhood, and they were, you know, turned out to be almost 100 by the time, well, now they are, second generations is gonna be moving in. So, same thing in over here, but when you plan max build-out, you don't plan for the minimum. Okay, and maybe there's a in-between there and a median, but yes, I can definitely see that public safety will be making routine tours in here on nights and other stuff like that is gonna require, you know, resources, and so that's why that's in the regulation, and it goes through, and if the department comes up and says, yeah, you know, with that unit there, we're gonna need another cruiser or two, and whatever, that gets thrown into the equation, and that's something that goes in.
I don't think that's, you know, I'm not under that regulation to begin with.
Is this coming through as special permit?
No.
We,
It doesn't permit, it doesn't, it's only under the zoning board of appeals.
we have
Yeah,
nothing
we were
to
just
do
asked
with
to
this.
provide
We were just, well, I know why it's in here tonight, but I mean,
They just
the
asked
actual
for
filing,
some comments. We have nothing to do with this.
that's up to them.
It's just a layout, like, I think the buildings work, I don't build for a living, I mean, I'm a site guy, I can see what that looks like, I know what it looks like when I bought the land. I think that's the best use of the site, for what the land I bought, I think the layout is great, the way the water's gonna loop in the store, I mean, we're gonna bring the store up, you know, that's moving
That's
along.
big, yeah.
You know, that's gonna benefit everyone down in Collegiate Park and Chesterton, I mean, that's huge, the Chesterton pond.
Where's the access coming from, the school, or down the tracks?
Store?
Yeah,
We're gonna come out, Center Street there.
Center Street?
Behind the highway there.
yeah.
Come out that way, you know. What's that year permit? Every year permit. Every year permit. So, I mean, I don't think you're gonna see a foundation for 2.5 years. You know, maybe 2, if all goes well, but, you know, the police have looked at this, the kids are down, the schools are down, but here's the other thing, right? After the national habitat and the turtle, and giving back all the land, there's nothing left. You're gonna do what, 3, 4 buildings maybe, industrial? No one's coming, right? It doesn't want to bring the store up for that. This is still gonna generate $500,000 a year for the town. Where else are we gonna get $500,000, even if you put 50 businesses up there? You know
Are you
what I mean?
talking taxes, or are you talking taxes and sewer, water hookups?
Yeah, all, I mean, just, the water's even more. You know, so it's, I mean, where's it, $500,000 a town, it's gonna help with the school, you know? So there's nothing else is gonna go in there to come anywhere close to that kind of money.
Yeah, you're looking at it from a different perspective, on that. I see what you're saying, and it's definitely gonna be added into the equation, but that's not this board, so, however, that's up to the selectmen and the ZBA and whoever else.
These buildings aren't, you know, these aren't three-story walk-up, cinder block buildings, I mean, these are backup generators, you know, they're all granite, you know, hardwood floors, copper, you know, the buildings are all, I wish I had the architectural, they're all colonial style, you know, the hip roofs, all pitched, different pitch, it's,
Yeah,
it's not a, I mean, it's a $50 million project at the end of the day, so it's not, we're not doing, you know, the old Mission Hill style project where it's 3-story, you know, with all steel railings going up. I mean, these are gonna be, no elevators, you know, everything's gonna be cambered. You know, we get the clubhouse with the pool and the functions, you know, inside the facility, maybe even a bicycle shop, I see that, that's a big thing now. Opportunity for the space on the bottom for commercial, right? But that's not for me at this time, I mean, that's a big enough bite of the apple for me right here, so.
yeah, my only initial concern is just the height of the structures and coming down, and that what you're gonna be able to see, you know, coming down Salem Street, is pushed back enough, obviously, to get tons of land in there. I mean, it is gonna look like, yeah, it is gonna look like Emerald City coming in there, so that's all.
Yeah, personally, I don't think you're gonna see, we're actually working on a rendition now, it'll be a 3D architectural
Oh, good.
rendering. So-
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, we'll see it, so, and remember, so here's the other thing, I look at it this way, right, so the top of the rock right now is elevation 152, by right, I can build 35, right? So I'd be, you know,
180.
155 there by 190. Well, I'm lowering the grade to 130, and if I build 60, I'm 190, so it's
Same height,
the same height at the end of the day.
from the cliff, yeah.
It sounds beautiful. When I looked at the architect drawings, they look gorgeous.
Yeah, so I wanted to give an idea, I mean, the concept of the Section 8, I get it, right? You know, the low-income housing, it's not that type of development. I mean, it's an expensive development where 25% of the units will be affordable to help the,
Right.
you know, but we're talking school teachers, police, firemen, you know, divorcees, whatever, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, the term affordable is not affordable. I know it's set by the state. It has nothing to do with you, but let's not pretend like it's
And it's
actually.
just, and it's all the way, it's even on my side, it's the cost, everything's
Oh,
just
absolutely.
double tax, it's triple tax,
Absolutely.
It's help us everywhere, and lotteries, it's-
Yeah, but you throw anywhere from 600 to 800 people in this community. That's a lot of,
Yeah.
that's where he's going, and I get
I
it.
got you.
And, so that's gonna be a lot of,
Going up there for medicals or whatever.
oh, yeah, well, then, yeah, that's gonna happen in, you know, you get a little mini city there, right there. So, that's a lot of residents condensed in one area, and it's nice, but that still brings life issues. And public safety is one of the things that definitely, I'm sure they're gonna be, keeping an eye on that as to what they're gonna have to do to do their job, so, but that's them,
No, understood.
so, I don't know. So what are we supposed to do besides review and, what do they want us to do?
Any just sort of,
Do we have to submit them tonight for comments?
No,
No?
I submitted them to you and email the plans, and so that you still have access to them. I can resend them out again, and then we can have, additional, comment period
Yeah.
until the meeting on the 3rd.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll take a look at that. Do we have an extra full set?
When are they before ZBA?
They're right on the town
Tomorrow.
website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the next civil and traffic review, is tomorrow for the ZBA. And then I believe they're gonna be trying to have another meeting, on the 4th, where
Sure.
they'll be looking at architecturals. Again, don't quote me, but I believe that's the next step. So, the sooner the comments, the better, but I don't think December 3rd would be,
Out of the question.
yeah. And all the plans that are, the architecturals, the original plans submitted, the amendment that was submitted, and even the new drawings are on that link that I sent to you, and the Dropbox link, and it's just way too large of a file to send.
Okay. Who's reviewing for ZBA? Oh, you guys got?
TEC's doing
Civil and traffic.
Som Architecture is doing an architectural review.
Well, I got,
Mark Jacobs.
Mark Jacobs, Civil Rutland, we just got the, squared away, so waiting on that, and notice consent, maybe an IDA, I don't know, notice consent,
Mhm.
no rush, and then just say how the public will first in time.
What do you guys have on this? Anything?
Our letter on that link?
Yes.
Not the one that you submitted that we have reviewed, but all the prior forms, all the former ones are there.
There were a lot of comments about the layout, nothing major. that
Yeah.
I saw that was not addressable. I think it's great that they're extending the sewer, I think that's a great, improvement for
Mm-hmm.
not only this development, but everyone in the advisory.
There's not a lot of dimensions on the drawings, because,
Yeah.
you know, that's most of their comments are like, well, how wide are the parking spaces, how wide are the drive aisles, how wide are, so, right now, I think tomorrow night, we're just gonna try to determine, like, okay, this is where the buildings are gonna be, and this is where, how the road's gonna be, and now we're just going to drain. We know everything works, but it's like, if things are gonna move 10 feet, maybe rims and inverts could change a little. So, if we can nail that down to within 5 or 10 feet tomorrow, we're ready to go on rims and inverts with drainage. And we actually done the test pits today in all 4 ponds. I have to wait till November, after November 1st to do that, because it'll be a sleeping pill. All right. How about this one?
Hibernating turtles, all right.
So, but so now we can move forward with that, instead of saying, well, we'll have to look at that later, because there's a lot of stuff that gets kicked down, you know, that's the problem with such a large project. You know, people wanna know, well, how's this gonna work, well, we don't know yet, so, are we doing 4 buildings, are we doing 3 buildings, you know, there's another plan with 3 buildings, you know, with zoning. So they're looking, because it's a large scale project, it could be 140 units, eliminating that first building.
This one?
No, first one.
That one.
You'd have to, if you're gonna eliminate a building, that would be the one, because you wouldn't wanna have to drive through everything and build another one.
So if you want 3 buildings, none of this would have to be here.
Just take the first building and the first parking lot out.
It's that. But if, right.
This would go.
But if you took this out,
Yeah, but how do I build that after? I have to drive through the whole,
how do you build what?
how do I build that building after?
Oh, you're talking
Yeah,
about
he's
this
talking
would,
phased,
oh,
Well,
phases.
because
Oh,
let
okay.
me back up. So
I thought you meant like.
like period.
Yeah, yeah,
500
sorry.
housing units in town, that, you know, I could be housed to a large-scale project, which would only be 6% of the number of total housing units, which would be 145. So if you do 144 units, town could always approve more. Now, the 2020 census coming out, that's gonna push that number over 25. But if I did 144, I think the town is 152 units right now. So they would still have, you know, they would still have to hear another proposal. So they, right now, we're reviewing it 192, because obviously 144 would still work. Everything's being designed for 192 for the 4 buildings, and, that's it. But if it was 3 buildings, we would just, you know, be perfect, honestly, I'd just file after the next census down. So, another site eligibility, when I get that 4th building. But it's hard to take it all in. I think that plan helped out tremendous, because when you look on the 40 scale, you don't know where you're at. You know, when you
Oh,
look
yeah,
at the
yeah, I get it.
you know, substantial amount of work on Nelson Street too, you know, that, you know, get the fire out there.
So when you approve Nelson Street,
I'll just come right down to the fire access, right down to the bottom, by the other garage. There'll be a gate at the top. All 4 sides will have fire access, which is probably first. And we'll look at it, how they do granite curb, concrete sidewalks, underground lighting. I mean, I'm not,
So when you said fire gate, so main access is here and this will be emergency with a gate for back in?
yeah, but I don't own this property. I do own this one now, but I don't own this one, so the gate would be right here.
So what's all the way up there?
That would just be road.
Right, so why
But
wouldn't
what's
the gate?
stopping you from being on Nelson and coming all the way
Yeah.
up the road?
That's what I mean, where's the gate?
I can't put a gate there because I have to maintain access for that landowner.
Oh,
Anything on that land?
No.
All right, well, are you all set? I gotta,
okay.
I mean, you can look at.
Yeah, I'm all set.
Rebecca's got it online, so
Yeah, I'll just,
make
you
your
know,
comments. I mean,
I'll
look
resend
at it.
I'll resend out the link with the,
Do you want everyone just to email their comments to you ahead
and
of time?
then you can submit the comments individually to me, and then we'll just. do
yeah,
it that
that's
way.
fine.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Brad, get over here quick.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get, it says business.
We
got
forgot to
one more,
approve the minutes.
What?
We forgot to approve the minutes,
right.
and then we're all done.
Oh, okay. Motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of November 5th.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to join.
Second.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
that's it?
That's it.
Hey, call you back in a minute.
I'm glad you
Bye.
came and sat on the side of the table just to say that. and then
Me
we're
too.
done.
Oh, let me check. We're just breaking a town meeting. Hang on.